This is episode 18 of OverSight. I'm the usual host, Thorin, here with Monte Cristo. It's going to be us every week, by the way, guys. I know, but when I say it like that, maybe it provides like a small amount of sort of hope that it could be someone different. Because actually, funnily enough, when I was researching a CSGO video today, believe it or not, who knows why I would ever take this as a source, there actually was a half-decent post on Polygon that summarized the whole scenario in CSGO with that player KNG, and they actually had a decent sort of like, chronological explanation. But when they got towards the end and they were citing, some evidence as to something that had happened behind the scenes, they cited the podcast I did with Richard, right? But then the way they wrote about it showed they don't follow anything in CSGO, because they said, to discuss the topic, Richard brought back Thorin onto his podcast By the Numbers, which is like, well, I'm on it every week though, like I'm the co-host. Like, in fact, we don't even have guests on that one, it's just us two, so pretty ridiculous, isn't it?
Actually,
they're doing so well.
Actually, last week I was out on Saturday night after the matches, and we record this on Sunday mornings. And Hex was saying, "Oh, I'm supposed to be on Thorin's podcast tomorrow." And I was like, "You mean my podcast with Thorin?"
Okay, really? I don't remember that.
Was
he supposed to be on that?
Yeah, Hex was on our show last week. But he was saying he was going to be on your podcast.
Oh, you mean hexagrams? I thought you meant hex from Optic for a second. Right, I was really confused by that. Right, I see what you mean. Yes, okay. No, it would have only been better, Monty, because by the way, this would have been like mildly embarrassing for you, but mildly embarrassing for him, as if he'd have just said like, you were like, well, yeah, I'm going to be there, and he was like, oh, you're a guest as well. And then it would just reveal that not only doesn't he watch it, but then so initially it'd burn you, but then it would fall back on him like, well. Yeah, but you also don't know anything about a D-hexagram. Like, no, I do. I like it. I love it. Anyway, so the guests on this particular episode. So we'll go in chronological order around the clock face, as it were. And in the bottom right-hand corner, radiant as the morning sun, shimmering in the light, obviously very, very sort of thematically connected with his character Mercy, is the support player, ArK, of the York Excelsior. Pretty good team, right? Not bad. We're getting the good guests now, Monty. We're moving up. Got a few Koreans. Okay. And then our other guest is no hello or anything there. He's just wait. He's literally, this is how well trained he is, Monty. He knows that until I actually ask him to speak, it's not his job to speak. I am the older person here. He understands the hierarchy in this, but I like this. I like the control this affords me, which I'll obviously abuse during this episode. Right, okay. So the other guest on this episode is Muma, who is the tank player for the Houston Outlaws. And I can tell you, from the last couple of weeks I've watched, obviously they had some DPS problems. That's a fucking heavy lifting job. You gotta really be, you gotta go with your hard hat on, and you're gonna go to work if you're the tank player for that team, mate. So we'll get into that as the episode goes on though. So welcome to the show, Muma.
Thank you.
Okay, so normally when we have one guest, we start out talking about one of their teams. So actually, let's try and bring young ArK here out of his shell. Because here's the thing, right? Normally, ArK, I'd give you like a real, I'd give you like a slow introduction to the show. I wouldn't press you too much. But you asked for this. It's not like when we had that other Korean player who we essentially bullied through his manager and again abused that Korean hierarchy to force to come on the show. You actively asked to come on the show. So if you ask for it, then I've got to give it to you. That's the way it works. So, okay, right. Here's the first question, ArK. Do you actually enjoy playing Mercy?
Actually, I didn't like it when I was playing first time, because like everyone, like when I was playing Lucio, everyone was chasing the Zenyatta, so I can just peel him off. Then
yes,
well, everything was fine, but right now they're all following me, so it's just like I should always look around if someone is stalking me or not. Like it's paranoia, I was having a hard time, yeah, but I'm kind of enjoying it right now for now.
You like being the prey now. So before you liked playing Lucio because you like to save your Zenyatta player, but now your Zenyatta player has to save you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, it's like kind of fun to like get away from them.
I mean, to be fair, Monty, his Zenyatta player doesn't save him. His Zenyatta player is killing all the other teams. So,
well, but he's helping him. But see,
indirectly,
he helps, yes. Because all he does, I mean, ArK's, as far as I can tell, your main job, ArK, is to hold right-click on JJoNak, right? You just sit there and you damage boost JJoNak, and then he kills everybody for you.
I knew that like every other Mercy players boost their DPS, but I usually damage JJoNak actually.
I know you do. So it's easier though because no one ever comes back to chase you because JJoNak kills everyone.
Yeah, if Chaser is behind us, JJoNak knows it, and he kills it, so it's fine.
Okay. Right, let me just double check. Your teams actually haven't played yet, right? I believe is it next week that they play? Let me double check. When do you two play each other?
We played for second week.
Yeah,
second week.
Well, no,
I think
you played the first week.
Yeah,
first week.
It was first week.
Let me double check. Oh, right. Yes, it was the last game of the first week. Okay. Right. Muma, obviously, people didn't actually know what to expect from the New York Excelsior team because obviously it's like a new lineup, They had some core from the Luxury Watch days, but they added in some other players like Libero, obviously. What was that match actually like for you guys when you were coming in?
That first week was it was a really rough spot for the Houston Outlaws, very obviously, especially with our loss to like not only Excelsior but also Fusion.
Yes.
We were going through I guess an experimental phase, which was pretty bad for us. We since the larger rosters have never really been seen in Overwatch, we were kind of trying to figure out exactly what we should do with it, and we were trying to get maximum potential out of all our players, and I don't think that was really the right way to be practicing. So, yeah, I think Excelsior is definitely the best team in the league right now. I do, and big shout out to JJoNak, you guys were speaking about JJonak's. Yes. They're the one team that really I think utilizes and gets the most out of Zenyatta, and I think
for sure.
Zenyatta's probably I don't know, I wouldn't, maybe not the best hero in the game right now, but definitely up there.
Looks like it when he plays it.
Yeah, the way they play around it is just really good, and there's really no other team in the league that does that.
Okay. I got worried for a second there when you were saying that, because when you were an obviously big shout out to, I thought you were really going to be a mad sycophant and be big shout out to ArK there, he's doing all the heavy lifting. I'd be come on, please, listen, none of that. None of that.
He does his job, but
yes, exactly. He does his job. Listen, the janitor comes in. I need him to clean the floors and everything and take all the blinds down, but I don't give him the gold Congressional Medal of Honor, do I? I'm just okay, thanks. You get paid.
That's pretty harsh.
Cheers. He's doing a good job. Okay, fine.
So your first week when you played against New York, when you said that you were trying to maximize your roster, does this mean so there have been a bunch of different philosophies from different teams on how to run a larger roster, and it seems like you guys were starting saying we want to play certain people on certain map types and be highly specialized, and then you moved away. Houston moved to saying, okay, we will instead run a more solid roster, sort of only moving in boink, really, when you, in the next couple of weeks, just for control. What changed your ideas based on that? And why did you switch so dramatically from week 1 to week 2 and through now?
When we were playing with our subs in, and you just brought in Clockwork or Spree for maps, they're both obviously great players, but it's crazy how just disjointed we can feel when we have to split our scrum time so much. I think there's a happy medium that you teams should find where you actually do split playtime with your subs, just so that what happened this week doesn't happen, because I'm pretty confident that I think our match against Dynasty would have gone a lot differently if we had Linkser, but I also think it could have gone a lot differently if we had scrim time with Clockwork. So it's just you have to find that medium of making sure you are prepared for the worst case,
Mm-hmm. And New York also, similar style ArK. You only make really one or two player changes. It's Janus or Mono, and then Pine or Sabilby or Pine or Libero, right? So you don't change a lot. Do you think that is helpful for your team? Not too many changes?
First of all, we don't have many substitutes, actually.
That's true.
We only have 2. Yeah, so yeah, first reason would be that. And I think it actually helps us team solid, because everyone in the have many play times in scrims, so yeah, that's right. So we can get more teamwork, I think.
So I have a question for you. When does your team like to use Janus, or Janus as you call him, and when does your team like to use Mono?
I think like for me, I think we prefer to use Mono when we're using the Libero. I think because like Mono needs more resources on him, like more covers, more heals, because like he's more aggressive than Janus. And well, and also Pine need more resources because like he's flanking around all the time. So
he does do that.
yeah. So probably I think Janus with Pine is the best composition, and also Mono and Libero, I think. And well, yeah, and also we use like Pine Libero at the same time when we don't need the Tracer in the map so much, I think.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, I figured that one out. I just didn't know with Janus and Mono how you guys were thinking about using them, but that's very helpful.
To be fair, Monty, there is a similarity between the philosophies of the two teams and their subs, because what happens is, New York obviously brings in Pine, so they bring in one of their subs every now and then for a map or two.
For control, usually, right?
And, he almost always is the MVP of one of the teams, and then Houston Outlaws did bring in Clockwork that game, and then he was the MVP for one of the teams. I'll just leave that one. That's a slow burner, that one. It's just for the real fans. Okay. See, the thing is, right? That's obviously obnoxious, but as Richard once told me on a show, never hold back straight fire. You just got to let it go, and then come what may. Okay. So
we'll get into that match in a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's ask the other side of that question. ArK, when you played against Houston Outlaws in the first week of play, you guys came in very strong. You won the match pretty convincingly. What were you researching about Houston or thinking about Houston going into the first match?
When we were handling them, we thought that they're really similar to us because like they have one really good projectile player like Jake, who's playing Junker and Farah, and we have Libero at the same time. And also they have Linger, who plays Widow and Chaser usually, and well, we have SBB same as him. So well, we thought that we're kind of like them. So first, we thought that we can just beat them with our comp, like same composition with them, but like their poking was so strong that time. So we had a hard time in the like first 2 rounds, I think. So we just swapped to Genji Tracer, like what Philadelphia did. So I think we just made a nice changes, I think.
See, that's the thing. That's how you know you're on a Korean team, where you have the luxury to say, all we did is just swap to having a good Genji and Tracer and win the game. It's like a lot of people would like to be in that situation. A lot of teams trying to do that at the moment.
Dallas is sitting there crying that they can't switch to a nice Genji Tracer and just win the game.
Okay. Has it actually been difficult? Has it been tough, ArK, trying to implement Libero into the team? Because obviously he wasn't there with the other players that were in Luxury Walks in the past, and comes from a very different team type.
Well, I think like Libero is kind of like a flower, so it wasn't like really hard, I think.
Okay, he means obviously they're the flower, the player who's not currently in the Overwatch League. It's not like a Shakespearean sonnet or something like. I think Libero is like a flower. I think of him every day and every hour.
I like it too. So you brought in Libero and you brought in JJoNak too, and JJoNak is a rookie. So obviously JJoNak has been doing very well. Was it hard to teach JJoNak how to play with a professional team?
Actually, I think he was just good from the first time. I think like when he first came into the team, he just carried the scream all the time. So
okay. I think we need to coin a term, Monty. It's called Korean privilege, and we need to teach them what that is, because I think a lot of these guys are just coming in here like, well, we just do, the rookie just owns the game. We switch up to all different combinations if we need to, to win the game. And if we need to, just bring in a sob, be the MVP or something. It's really tough, actually, this Overwatch League business. But listen, if the fans cheer for me, I'll show good games. So.
Must be nice, right?
It is. It is pretty nice. Okay, let me ask you then, Muma, as someone looking on and who obviously played Excelsior very early, before people knew that they were potentially the best team, what do you think's made them the best team this split so far?
I mean, I already spoke on it a little bit before, but I really do believe it's just like the power of JJoNak. there is no other team that really gets the value out of their Zenyatta as New York Excelsior does. And I mean, like, there's lots of different playstyles of Zenyatta. It's hard to say, like, JJoNak's the best Zenyatta in the world. He's definitely the most aggressive Zenyatta in the world, and he has, like, an entire team that plays around him, which just is what makes Excelsior so good. On, like, one hand, you've got players like Rouge Hong, who are just, like, they're not, like, super duper flashy on Zenyatta, but they just have he's very, very selfless on the hero. It's just he seems like he's always making the right decisions and stuff. And the state that the game is in, where it's just so dominated by Mercy Zenyatta, I feel like Excelsior's strategy of just literally, hey, put the beam on JJoNak, hey, protect JJoNak, kill everyone. It just really sets them apart from other teams.
Okay. So here's a question for you both. So if we're talking about Zenyatta, we are not in the post nerf Mercy patch yet, but we will be for stage 2. So now that Mercy's getting nerfed and we will see her played less, is Zenyatta's right click the most unbalanced, overpowered ability in Overwatch on the new patch? Do you think that is a true statement? Is there another ability you think is more powerful than Zenyatta right click?
I would give it to Zenyatta right click. I think I would, yeah.
For me, if it's JJoNak, then I'll give it. But I think Junkrat is still good, so maybe Junkrat should.
So Junkrat, which ability? The Junkrat mine or just his grenades?
Just his grenades, I think.
Okay,
yeah,
that's fair. That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
The problem is, it's when you see someone really good on either of them, they're both fuck OP as fuck. That's the thing.
Well, when you say really good, here's the other thing. So hilariously, both of those abilities are used to kill people, like when you can't even see them, and people randomly die to those abilities all the time because you can't predict when you walk around a corner that there's going to be Junkrat grenades or a Zenyatta right click aimed at your head. So I think what the through line is that these abilities that don't have a lot of counterplay to them are among the most powerful and most annoying.
Yeah, but the problem is the game isn't balanced around professional players. I hate to break this to you again, but, you know, I don't know if you've been in contact with whoever they are, SEAL Team 6 or whoever it is in that bunker 6 miles below the earth near the fucking core or whatever it is. But they think differently about the game than some of us mere mortals, believe it or not. Okay, so ArK, let me ask you a classic question that just shit stirring, really. That's what we call it in English, mate. It's where you're trying to sort of like get a possibly edgy remark. So I used to think actually that the Seoul Dynasty was the best team in the Overwatch League, and I thought that in week 3 they would show it by beating down the New York Excelsior and showing that, you know, yeah, New York has all these really good players, but, you know, team cohesion is what would win the game, and obviously they have all the really sick supportive elements in their team. But you guys won, and everyone says you're the best now. So were you always the best, ArK? Was New York Excelsior always the best team in Overwatch League?
Actually, I wanted to talk about something like this, like, because like Cookie talked so diplomatic, so yeah, exactly. I just wanted to do some trash talks, maybe.
Come on then.
Yes.
I mean, you've already sort of low-key trash talked him there, so let's go. Let's keep it rolling. Talk that shit.
So I thought that their tank line's conditions were really bad, so we just used Orisa Hog and just get their tanks out, and then we'll win, and just we win. I think that's probably the why. I think we just like made the strat really good. I think that's probably the first reason. And well, I thought that we were gonna win actually. So, because like, well, we have more better players, I think. So.
Not an unreasonable statement at this point in time, I don't think. That's pretty fair.
That is to be fair. So when you talk about the Orisa Hog combo, so we've seen Meko, and for me, I think Meko is the best off-tank player in the world right now. I think he is just amazing. And he will play the Roadhog and the Orisa. So it's he'll play the Roadhog to the Orisa that Mano or Jonas is playing. So when you look at him, and I was casting your game yesterday, Dallas Fuel, when you played against Dallas Fuel, and his hooks were so important for your wins. And so are you relying on his hooks and the Orisa halt to bring people out and get the tank kills? Do you focus mostly on the tanks? Because that's how you were playing on Anubis, Temple of Anubis yesterday versus Dallas Fuel.
I think like the hook combo using the Orisa's balls and Roadhog's hooks is just like part of the, like, how do I say it? Part of the good things in this combo. And well, I think it's just good at counter like diving meta. Like when they're using with the diva, then no matter there's a hook or not, they can just handle it because like Orisa can use her shift to be there, always like just handle the positions all the times, and Hawk also have drinking something, so and,
the vaping.
Yeah, and
I see what he means.
I don't know why, but yeah. They're really good at it.
That's totally changed the way I've seen that ability. Now, I also thought, yes, he was inhaling some sort of like, venom that made him like Bane. I didn't realize he was just sipping tea with his little finger on. Delicious. What a delightful day. My health is going up. My well-being, my inspiration. Okay, Muma, did you always think early on in the league, like had you already scrimmed before Overwatch League against New York Excelsior? Did you always think they were going to be the best team? Or did you, like me, perhaps naively think that Seoul was the best?
I definitely did think Seoul was the best. I went into the league thinking that Excelsior was the worst of the 3 Korean rosters. Silly me.
Sure.
Well, just remember that LW is really good until they get to playoffs, and then they just die. So
I do recall that a bit. I'm very interested to see what the team becomes next splits with the different meta. I know ArK is very good at Lucio as well, so seeing that Lucio come into meta will be interesting. And I'm not 100% sure where the meta is going to be next split, just because I really haven't been playing it much because I've been so focused on this split right now. But I think it'll be very interesting if Zen falls out of favor. I don't think Zen will, because I still think, like I said, Zen's probably the best hero in the game. But I think if there's a meta where I haven't really seen JJoNak on other things. I've seen him play a little bit of Ana, but I've never seen a player as dominant on their hero as JJoNak is on Zen. It like reminds me back when Miro invented Winston. Like he was just so dominant on that hero, and that it kind of reminds me of that a lot.
Okay. JJoNak did play Ana yesterday on Numbani, and he played it very well. His biotic grenades were super good against Dallas yesterday, but again, very small sample size.
He's definitely good at Ana, but he's just like it's you know what I'm saying. It's hard to.
Okay, so then let's actually, on this topic then, let's talk about, obviously it's the last game you played, was the game against Seoul Dynasty, which was a close match. So what was this match like from your perspective?
It was really rough going into it because we were all really upset about Linkser not being able to play, very obviously, just because we hadn't been scrimming with anyone except Linkser. The morning of, Raucus also actually messages the Discord and is like, hey guys, I probably can't play. I can hardly stand up. I'm really dizzy. So that's when all the Houston out 6 jokes came up. It's rough, but after a couple hours, Raucus was like, all right, I think I'm going to try to tough it out and I'm going to come in and try to play. And he did. He said he felt a lot better when he actually got up and started moving and scrimming with us. We all were still messaging Linkser like, hey dude, you should probably come into the venue. Just, I know you're sick, but like you can see how you feel. And he ended up not, which is okay. It's not that big of a deal. I think we can still make playoffs, but it kind of sucks that we are a little bit. It's going to be a lot harder for us to make stage 1 playoffs because of this. I think Clockwork did a really, really great job filling Linkser's role, which actually surprised me a lot because when we looked at the map pool, there were
so
maps
good for you guys.
So it is so good. It was actually such a good map pool for us.
Why was that?
Assuming, we don't lose on Junkertown. We have all these great Widow maps. We've always been.
I have actually stats, which you probably don't know about yourself. You guys actually were completely undefeated on Eichenwald, Lunar Colony, and Junkertown. So you had 3 out of the 4 maps that they had performed extremely well on in the past. They had beat New York on Junkertown. So if they could beat New York on Junkertown, I thought, hell, they might be able to beat Seoul on Junkertown. So why I was so fucking mad at you guys about not running Linkster was I would have predicted you guys to beat Seoul because it was too perfect. The conditions were too perfect for this upset. So literally it was the second match of Friday, the last match of Thursday. I figured, hey, Seoul will probably be putting all of their preparation into playing London, right? It seems like the more dangerous team. You got to win there. You can really do something with it. So first off, Seoul, who also was undefeated on Horizon Lunar Colony, so they were going to be good on that map. But otherwise, I think the maps were in Houston's favor. They literally had entirely different maps against London. So they had to play all 8 maps in almost back-to-back matches. Houston had a big map pool advantage with those particular maps. They had just lost to London. London was playing a style of Overwatch with emphasizing Junkrat and Widowmaker that is very similar to the style that we had seen consistently from the Houston Outlaws, and London got 4-0'd by that style. So I was thinking, okay, here we go. Stylistic mismatch with a team that is, doing exactly the same thing that London just did to beat them on their best maps, on a different map pool, entirely different map pool, basically a match later. And Houston's on this hot streak. Seoul's, crumbling a little bit. Are they going to play Jaehong? And then the Linkster news came out, and I was like, fuck this. I was sure that Houston was going to be able to win this until I heard about Linkster. So I was just really disappointed. I am impressed, though, that you guys pushed it all the way to 5 maps and made it so close, even without Linkster. I thought that was great. That was a great, greatly indicative of your guys' skill, but it was really disappointing because this should have been an upset win for you guys.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I'm trying to think of the silver lining because, it eliminates or it hurts our chances of stage 1 playoffs a lot. But that's not really the worst thing in the world because I think we have grown an incredible amount as a team throughout this split, and I think that can be very well seen from our first week.
you can't. Oh yeah, obviously you can't think of a silver lining because I can think of a great silver lining to this. Also, for you guys, what the most impressive thing is, it wasn't like Clockwork played badly, but Clockwork was fine. But for me, what this said was that you guys all together, your entire team, understands your philosophy about how to play Overwatch, and the fact that Clockwork was put in and you guys nearly won anyway, and he played so cohesively with the rest of the team says that you guys, all of you, your substitutes included, seem to have a very strong understanding of how you guys want to play Overwatch and what the strategies are, and you can come and implement that very quickly. So that means you guys have great communication. The coaching's probably going pretty well for you. You conceptually are all on the same page. I think that's really good for you guys that you could almost do this without Linkster, who has been an absolute monster this season.
Yeah, our bench does a really good job at paying attention during scrims. They do a pretty insane amount of coaching actually, just helping with Tyrong. We have in our Discord we have feedback channels for Tyrong and Hyun and Mezer to post their feedback, but then we also have a player feedback channel because when our subs are just watching the scrims, watching their roles, it's really helpful for us to actually build that cohesion with the players that aren't even in the roster or that aren't starting in the roster all the time, which it definitely helps us a lot. And I mean, like I said, you could kind of see that with Clockwork, even though he was playing a role that he's not entirely used to.
Yes, I mean, jokes aside, obviously, that's above and beyond the Call of Duty. That is not what he is expected to do in the team, and he had to literally do it last minute as well. So it's not even like he had time to prepare for it. But yeah, I agree with Monty. I think the upside here is while I don't think there actually are moral victories, I do think that it just shows more character though, because I know a lot of teams that especially if a star player is out, they would just almost mentally, that's they've already got the excuse in their back pocket, of course we lost really badly, but it doesn't matter, we didn't have our player. So to come close to even winning shows a level of mental fortitude that there's a lot of teams in the league actually don't have right now with their main lineup, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And even with also Clockwork playing Pharah and Jake playing Tracer. That was like we had the last second finding out that Linkser wasn't able to play, so we were just like, all right, Clockwork, you're in. And then even more last second than that, we were like, you know what, Clock, you play Pharah and Jake play Tracer instead, because historically you'd look at our roster and be like, okay, Clockwork's the Tracer player and Jake's the Pharah player. But I think the swap that we had actually was a lot for the better for us. I think Clock's he's a great aimer, and his Pharah is pretty good, and his Soldier and his McCree is even better than his Tracer.
Okay, well, you had me there till his Pharah was pretty good, because I literally watched him get absolutely shit on Ilias.
Yes,
which was his worst. Most of the time he did fine.
Our Koth was atrocious. You are right. We're referring to Eichenwald.
Yes, he was fine on Eichenwald.
He did slam on Eichenwald. I definitely agree with you. I do recall very vividly. Before the map, we were like, all right, let's run that Pharah Mercy. We're going to put Clock on Pharah again. I remember it was like second map, we just got 100-0 the first map. Second one, it's like 70-0. And I'm just like, I think maybe we should go chase a Genji dive. And it was just nothing.
I mean, to be fair, you guys have not been good at control overall. So talk to me. Why are you guys not good at control? Because you guys are so good at hybrid and escort.
That is a great question. I'm not really entirely sure what our biggest problem with control is. I think what our roster is very good at is me and Cool Matt are very, very good at winning the tank battle, and like securing space on payload maps. Just really good at pressuring out their tanks. Koth, I feel, is a lot different in that I don't think it's as much about that tank v tank matchup, because you can kind of just go in instead of just having to like there's not that period of time where it's like tanks fighting each other a little bit before the action breaks out. The action can literally just be the tanks engaging, which I think is a little bit of a problem of me and Cool Matt, and then also a little bit of a problem of our team not being very dive oriented. We have like a rather passive playstyle, because Jake likes to be on that Junkrat and Soldier 76, which doesn't really help dive very much. We definitely need to be putting a lot more time into control, though. It's very, very bad when we are able to have such a close series and then go on the Koth and just 2-0, 100-0, just 2 times in a row. It's bad. It's really bad.
It also puts a lot of pressure on you to win, because in theory, if you guys have to win all of the other maps to win basically a set, because if we go to the 5th map and you guys have to play on control again, I mean, we saw like that could be super bad for you, right? Like we saw you guys lose to the Philadelphia Fusion like that. So
I think our Lejong is actually I think it's our best control map. And I do actually think that we're pretty good at that map, all things considered. We do have a lot. We have lost many matches 3-2 this season, though, on Lejong. That is probably, like I said, in part due to how bad our Koths are. But I do think we're a lot more comfortable on Lejong than the others.
Okay, right. Let's talk now more broadly. So for
hold on. Okay. I want to talk a little bit before we go broad. I want to talk to ArK about control. So the other thing is, ArK, you play on control very well, and you play so many different strategies on control. Like you play Orisa Roadhog. One of the things you do is that you play Roadhog D.Va as the only tanks. Can you explain your strategy or why you use Roadhog D.Va?
I don't know if I can talk about it, but yeah, but I'll try it. But by the way, like if you're using if you know that they're gonna use like McCree Chaser or something, that they're not gonna dive into us really aggressively, like if they're not using the Genji Chaser or something, if it's obvious, like when you're handling with Shanghai Dragons, we know that, and it's true that we're gonna just contest them all the time, just shooting the soldiers' rockets or something. But in that time, then if the time of contesting goes long, then the Roadhog hook can work, I think. So that's probably why we're using it. Yeah.
So they're not going to dive behind your tanks, and you can you can keep throwing Roadhog hook until you get a pick while you keep healing. Gives you a lot of Valkyrie charge too.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So also you have Pine a lot of the time come in, and you've been on LW for a while, so you are used to playing with Pine as a player. Why control for Pine? Sometimes we see him he played obviously all the time against Shanghai. Sabielby was sick. Was he sick?
Actually, in that match, Janus and Sabielby was both sick, so we cannot use both two. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. But you like to use Pine on control and on Ilios, and he has shown us some really good mechanics. Like you say, he likes to flank his McCree, walk around the side. He's very weird in the way that he plays. Why do you guys like to use him on control maps particularly?
Because like in hybrid or payload maps, if he flanks and dies, then it really damages us a lot. But if control maps, if he like flanks and kills someone, then it's really big. But if he dies, then we can cover it. So I think that's probably why, I think.
Okay. That's funny. Okay, now we can go to your general question. I got my questions answered.
So now what we'll do, obviously we've talked about both of your teams. We'll just talk about some of the other teams in the league, and to not put anyone on the spot, because I can't know which games you have and which games you haven't watched. More generally, we'll talk about the team itself. And so if you've seen a particular game recently, feel free to give details of that one. If you haven't, just talk more generally about the team. And these are for everyone. It's no longer having to call upon each person, except if I really specifically want to welcome ArK into the minefield of potential banter, at which point in time that'll be my prerogative to do so. Okay. So let's talk now about the Seoul Dynasty before we move on to some of the other teams, because it's kind of crazy to think that in their last 4 games, they've lost 3 of them, and the one they won was against Shanghai Dragons, and they even lost the map to them. So what is going on with the Seoul Dynasty right now?
Oh, okay.
What has changed about Seoul, do you think?
I feel like Seoul has always been a team led very strongly by their tanks. Not very. Miro's teams in the past, I should say, not Seoul in the past. But Miro has always been the Winston, and I feel like that's really fell off recently. I feel like Miro definitely was like he really like created Winston. He created the play style that a lot of Winstons go to, and he was a lot of role model, like a role model for a lot of Winston's players. And he was studied a lot by even myself. Like I have spent many hours watching just Miro VODs and like Miro stream and just his gameplay. And
what was
I feel
so
as
different
though
about what he did? Give us like some context for what he changed.
I'm not entirely sure that he's exactly changed, but I feel as though people have caught up with him. You know, he's not like before he was the Winston and there was no one that could really touch him and no one even came close to being that good at Winston. But people have just spent so much time studying and practicing and playing on their own that they've caught up. He's no longer just that much better at Winston than everyone else.
Okay. What do you think, ArK? What's changed about the Dynasty? Or rather, to use the context that Muma said, they are a different team from Lunatic High. So what hasn't come together for them with this lineup that's making them not the number 1 team, do you think?
I think when they were in like Korea, when they were Lunatic High, they were really famous about their tanks and support. But I think the both supports and tanks haven't adapted to the meta yet. Because Toby is having a hard time using the Mercy, and their tanks is really having a hard time too. So I think that's probably why.
So just to go on that, you are a Mercy player, so I want your opinion, because Toby is obviously such a great Lucio player, maybe the best Lucio player. And I was casting both of your matches this week, but when I was casting the Houston versus Seoul game, Toby would die all the time with his Valkyrie up, or he would use his Valkyrie, his ultimate, and then die immediately afterward. I think this is a big problem for Seoul in the current meta. Do you think that Toby is not as good at positioning? Do you think he is in the wrong place on the Mercy a lot of the time? Or do you think his team is not protecting him enough, like his tanks?
I think Toby is not in his position, half of time, I think, because like his first stats is, I think, really high. So
I agree.
That's probably right. Yeah. Well, sometimes like the teammates might be bad because like the pilling might be bad or Zenyatta's sword was too late or something. But I think like his like first stat rate is so high to say like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another factor with the Seoul team was one of the reasons why they were very, very hyped is, as you say, yes, they were really led, and the strong point was the supports and the tanks in the past, and then they added all these DPS players, and okay, so Fleta came in with massive hype around him, and admittedly, if your tanks and supports do badly, you're not going to look very good as DPS. But I have to say, aside from Fleta, I actually feel like the DPS has been a bit underwhelming. Like when I've watched Munchkin play, I don't really think he's like some super duper player or anything. I feel like there's some flaws in that regard. But is that just that they're not looking as good because the other parts of the teams have fallen down? What would people's takes be?
Well, I want to ask ArK about this too, because Sebyolbi, or SBB as he refers to Sebyolbi, when you guys played against Seoul, Sebyolbi was fucking up Munchkin. Like, he was fucking up their DPS. And the thing about Sebyolbi is, I think, and we talk about Sebyolbi, and we think casters think he is the best 1v1 tracer player in the world because he is so good at pushing the other tracer player or pushing another DPS player out. He doesn't go for support kills. He goes for taking the DPS away. He like deletes the other DPS. So Seoul against you, when they played against you, they changed to Bunny by the last map because Munchkin was not doing very well. When you play with Sebyolbi, do you notice that he does this? And is this one of his best factors?
I think it's one of his factors. Like, he is really good at shutting out the enemy's tracer. So, well, that's probably why.
So when you played them, though, and to Thorin's question, when he said, what about Seoul's other DPS players? Fleta is really good. We know Fleta's really good. Do you think one of the reasons why you beat Seoul is because Munchkin, Bunny, Wikid are not as strong as Fleta? Is this a weak point?
Kinda, I think, because like, well, they don't have like dominant two players who can be the like starters. Should I say? I think like we have a Libero and SPB who can handle almost every like. SPB can handle almost every scan, and Libero can handle almost all the projectile. So, well, we have like two dominant starters who can start with, but I think they don't have it. So, like, well, Fleta can play anything, but like Bunny and Munchkin can play some his can, but well, SPB can shut them down, and well, Wicked can play some projectile players, but then Fleta can use like some dominant plays, like if you do like Widowmaker or Genji or something, then he can do some dominant play, but it definitely need a tracer player. So
did you feel that as well, Muma, when you played them? Were you not as worried about playing against Wikid? Oh, you played more against Wikid because they were playing a lot of Junkrat. Yeah,
they played a lot of Fleeto Wikid, which I thought was very, very. I was definitely very surprised by it. I remember sitting on stage, and we were looked over and we're like, all right, let's talk about what we're gonna do against them. And Jake's just like, they don't have a tracer, and we're just like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. We were definitely. I think Fleta's obviously he's really, really great. Wikid definitely does seem a little bit weaker than a lot of the other top Overwatch League DPS players. His Junkrat's actually really, really good. I do agree that his Junkrat is top tier. He played a lot of Tracer in our series. He's not bad at it, but I just don't think it's as dominant as like other household Tracer names, and it just seems so crazy to me to ever have him on Tracer when you have both Bunny and a Munchkin on your roster, who are also like they're actually top tier Tracers.
Well, I think part of it was the map pool, though, because you guys were playing like Junkertown, and you guys were playing Horizon, which are good maps for Junkrat. So I guess I'm less surprised, because you have to have that flexibility, right? So and you did play against Munchkin on the control points, so
yeah.
Okay. What about the Korean team we have not yet talked about then? The London Spitfire, the ones who 4-0 Dynasty, as we just described now, and basically look like, if you look at the games they've got coming up, okay, except at the end when they play York Excelsior, most people expect that they're going to roll through to a super good record. They play both your teams next week. So what are the thoughts here in light of the fact you're both going to play against them next week?
I'll be completely honest about the Spitfire roster. I am not very I didn't really follow Apex a ton, so I don't really like I don't have very strong opinions on a lot of the players. I think Prophet, I do have a strong opinion on him. I think he's one of the best tracers in the world. He's also incredibly flexible. Jester is also very, very good. Other than that, I don't really have very strong opinions on a lot of the others. I know there's like the roster is obviously very stacked, but I'm not very sure on like their individual skill. I think the biggest asset that Spitfire has is they've proven so well that they're so good at switching up their roster and performing well. Like you don't really know which roster you're going to be playing against or what players they're going to be playing, and I think they're just so versatile in that regard, and I think that's very strong for them.
What did you think about that statement that your teammate Jake made when we did the first episode? Admittedly, it was the preview episode, okay? No games had been played, where he said that he thought that, people were overhyping Koreans a bit, and he said he thought they were good, but they were maybe like 5% better than Western players.
I mean, I do actually agree with that.
Okay.
I think that on an individual level, most Koreans are very not exactly worse. I think it's very, very close on an individual level. I think the thing that really sets Western teams apart from the Korean teams is a lot of their work ethic and the way they view the game and the way they approach the game and their coaching staff also. And that's something that I'm really happy to be working with Tyrong now. And New York's coach, Wizard Young, I've worked with him in the past as well. Before FNR GFE, he was working with GFE actually for a brief while, and I actually learned an incredible amount from him. And
he is fluent in English, by the way. So
he is very he's
put that out
great
there.
English.
Once you was saying that to the audience there, not Muma, obviously.
I'm pretty sure Muma knows.
It sounded like it, though, the way you said it. Like.
Did you know he's fluent in English while he was coaching you? Anyway,
he wasn't talking Korean the whole time.
That's what really opened my eyes to what I think really separates the West from the Koreans, like I said.
See, what's genius there, Monty, is the way he went from the players, they are maybe just a bit better. The coaches, though, Korean coaches, fantastic. Oh, excellent. The best I've ever seen, Oh, by the way, we have a Korean coach, actually. Let me just bring him up right now. Love you, coach. You're the best. And, coaches, 50% better. 100, whatever. Yeah. Okay, ArK, what do you think? This is your opportunity to backtrack on all the potential...
Talk about London.
All the potential trash talking you were doing before. What do you think? The best Korean players are surely better than 5% better than the best Western players are. Come on.
Okay. First, talking about London, I think, Closer was much better than I thought. Well, that was the first factor. And, Nuss was worse than I thought. Yeah. And also, I never expected that Uyghur can be that good. Actually, Fury was really good, but Uyghur was really chasing him up in their diva plays.
Yeah, Woohyel was super good. Yeah, I think they gave him like Jester and Woohyel played really well. So one thing that we saw this week that was really surprising was that for the first time, London played 4 GC Busan players, and then the supports and the tanks, and then they played Rascal and Birdring, so 2 of the Kongdu DPS. So now it seems like London is changing their style. Because this week when they played against Seoul, they played entirely different style, way more Junkrat. So now you're planning for London next week. So what do you think they will do? Because now they're great at dive. We know they're good at Junkrat now. Do they have a weakness?
I think one of the things is that they don't change the comp very much like us. Like we're using Roadhog Diva, Winston Hog, Winston Diva, and like changing tank comp all the time, but I think they'll probably use the Winston Diva like the most, so we can just prepare to that. I think that's one of the good thing. And then, well, the other thing is gonna be like if you're using the Hagopen and Closer roster, then we can just maybe chase down the Hagopen maybe, and if they're using the Nuts and the Vidoshin, then well, Vidoshin is really aggressive, so it's really hard for us to keep track of him, I think. So, well, we can just chase the Nuts down then. Well, it's just my thoughts, actually.
Yep. Well, it's
and
good.
Actually,
we want your thoughts, ArK. These are good thoughts.
And then, actually, I think they can just like DPS really well. And it's really their strength. So, we can like find some weakness from maybe their tanks or support, I think.
Okay.
So now we're going to talk about the 5% better, because he didn't answer that.
Yes, you didn't answer that. Yes.
I wanted to talk about London next week, and then we could talk about the 5% better.
I think not 5, maybe 15.
All right, there we go.
Yes. We've already got a better rate. Okay. Put my money in. I'm depositing in the bank of ArK already. I've got a 15% rate on, not some measly 5%.
So, but what to talk to this, when Muma was talking about the difference being the teamwork and the coaching, I think most people would agree with that. And right now, all top 5 teams have Apex coaches, coaches from Apex. So it's the 3 all-Korean rosters, Houston Outlaws and Boston, all have Korean Apex coaches. Do you think this is the biggest difference, is having the Apex coaches or the Korean coaches?
Oh, yes, I think so. Cause when I heard the Western team coaches, like how they coach, like I knew that Koreans might be better, but like I think it's style differences. But like I think it's kind of good that Koreans are really hardworking and just like our coach probably just wake up all the nights, wake up until 3 a.m. or something, just working for the strat when he was handling Seoul. So I think hardworking and things like that is really good, and feedback stars maybe.
Okay. So then let's talk about a team I wanted to get your take on, because this is an interesting one. If you remember last week, Monty, I told you that the lineup for Valiant was, because they were playing Philadelphia and Boston, they basically would have been tied or above one of the Korean teams if they'd gone ahead and completed that. Now, they got it done against Philadelphia, but then they got wrecked by the Boston team. So what do you think of Valiant? Because obviously they actually have to play Dynasty this week. So they've looked so good up until this point. They were right on the cusp of maybe they were going to break through. Is it crumbling? Is something going wrong? What's going on here?
Well, first off, they had 2 players that were sick against Boston. Sure. So the problem right now, I'm sick. Some of the casters have been sick. The players have been sick. It's actually the more people are hospitalized this year because of the flu than the last 10 years or whatever. It's the worst flu outbreak. So
I'd just suggest, if you go to the Overwatch League and you get in the catering, don't drink the punch. I'd bring your own bottles of water if I were you.
By the way, the best part of this too is that because 11 out of the 12 teams practice together in literal rooms next to each other, at the facility, the bucket disease just spreads like wildfire.
You know what's going to happen now, Monty? This is exactly where... Okay, you ready, Muma? This is where Koreans are ahead of everyone in the West. Because if you've ever been to Korea, if they get a cold, or if anyone around them has a cold, they wear one of those little masks that looks like you're painting like the side of your house or something, you know? Yeah, like so they're going to come in... They're going to come in fucking hazmat suits next week, mate, when they come to practice, you know?
You know what's funny is... I was actually making fun of Kai and Matt Tasbo, so the manager and coach of Dallas, because they came in and were getting makeup done, and they had the masks. And I was like, "You guys have spent too much time in Korea."
Oh no, they're the thinkers.
And they were like, "Well, we did in 2017. We lived in Korea longer than we lived anywhere else." It's like, what the hell? But yes, it's been bad, and even though the Valiant are actually not practicing in the facility, which does not account for perhaps their illness, they did miss Silk Thread and Unko against Boston. And I don't think, based on what I saw yesterday, that would have been a difference maker. I think instead it's actually Boston getting significantly better. And also Dreamcasper played an insane series yesterday. Just in terms of his individual performance, he was ridiculous on the Pharah. He was ridiculous on the Genji. So I think he as a player is improving a lot. And Boston right now, while they started out earlier in the season being only good at dive, they could only play Tracer Genji. Now they can play a bunch of other stuff too. So I think their strategies are really developing, and they have more versatility. Whereas Valiant, I think, are limited because they don't have a true sort of second DPS threat. Soon is great, but Agilities and Silk Thread, I think, are limited in their abilities. So I'm a little more skeptical of.
So then what's bothering you then, Monty? Because obviously everyone was going crazy about Silk Thread the first few weeks.
Yeah, but Silk Thread he's very passive sometimes, and I think that he misses opportunities because he'll hold his ultimate and play super defensively for a really, really, really long time. And sometimes he just ends up like holding a Dragon Blade through 3 fights, and you're like, why don't you just attempt to use this? Or he seems to be somewhat scared of engaging at times. I don't know. I mean, you guys have played against the Valiant, I believe.
Yes. Everyone has here.
Everybody has.
Muma, come on. What's the problem? They were supposed to be the hope of the West.
We haven't played the Valiant stage 1. We don't play them at all.
Oh, you don't play them in stage 1.
We do not have a single match against them stage 1.
New York did.
Who knows how that works?
I think we've scrimmed the Valiant literally once.
For me, I think like they're like Monte mentioned, like agilities. Like we just kind of think that in our team thought that agility is kind of Genji one trick and Secret is Soldier one trick, and if he uses Genji, then might be agility might be better. We just thought like that, but well, the thought was changed when we screamed at that. But like, well, it's kind of similar to it. I think like agility is really good at Genji, but like he's really, I don't know what like. He's really good at in other characters. Maybe he's really good at Genji, but so we really like tried to shut him down. We just tried that. Yeah.
See, when you say that he's a one trick at Genji, I mean, in many ways, the greatest trick that Agility's ever pulled off was making everyone believe that his champion pool existed.
Going for the Kaiser Sose quotes.
Not bad, not bad. Worked that in. I almost pulled it off. I said champion, so I fell into the League of Legends talk there, ruined it completely, Monty, but I did my best.
See, I find it's better to go with heroes as a general rule rather than champions, because if you say heroes, you're correct in like Overwatch, Dota, more games. So it's better just to default to heroes in general, as has been my experience. Yeah, so I don't know. Like the Valiant, I think would be a lot better because you look at their roster. I think Unko has been struggling on the Mercy. He, like Toby, has been dying a lot early in fights, which is pretty bad. So I think part of it is they're not as good as they could be in this particular meta. I think that they lack versatility. I think that they couldn't make substitutions because they've been playing Silk Thread and Agilities, sort of bringing both of them in during matches. So they've been able to vary up their comps that way, but they couldn't do that against Boston. Again, I don't think this would have mattered because I think Boston just had an outstanding day and that they were going to win. Maybe Valiant takes a map, but I don't think they would have won even if Unko and Silk Thread were not ill. And I think really the story is about Boston's development. Against Philadelphia, that was relatively convincing. I think Philadelphia still is like struggling with who to start on this roster. I have no idea why they've taken out Poco. That's really odd to me, considering how much he was doing for this team and how much space he was opening up. They say it's because Hotba is the more defensive diva, but you know what Philadelphia is going to do. They're going to Carpe and Shadowburn are going to try and kill your supports. So if you can keep your supports alive and kill them when they dive you will win games. So.
Okay. Well, how about this? So two of the teams we've talked about, Valiant and Seoul, play in their first match of next week. Who wins this game, Muma?
Who was it? I'm sorry.
Valiant and Seoul.
I think it'll probably be Seoul, but I definitely think Valiant will be able to put up a fight. I think if they have Unko back, I do think it'll actually be a pretty close game. I think Fate is inconsistent, but I think other than that, I think he's probably one of the better Winstons actually in the league. And then their DPS lineup soon is obviously really good as well. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. Like I said, we've literally only got to scrim Valiant once because we don't play them in the first splits, and since they aren't in the practice facility, we don't really scrim them much since we can't play on the LAN client.
Oh, they still can't play on the LAN client?
I think there's like a way to scrim them now through like the OPR client or something. Yeah. But we haven't done that yet.
Because I would think if you weren't playing them during this stage, you guys would be best friends. You guys would be fucking playing each other all the time.
Yeah, you would think so. But like I said, I don't. Do you know ArK? Do you know when they got their OPR accounts?
Because it was like 1 or 2 weeks ago, I think.
Was it? Okay. Well, yeah. Like I said, we've scrimmed them once, and it was off LAN client, and we just. I feel like the difference between the LAN client and online play is just it's so different that there's just like I think the practice that we can get from scrimming other teams on the LAN client is better than scrimming a team that we don't have to play off the LAN clients.
Okay. Right, ArK, who's going to win, Valiant or Dynasty?
I'll expect Seoul win by 3-2, I think. Because like Valiant will bring back, get the Uncle back. And well, I mentioned like utilities as Genji one trick, but I think he can compete with Fleta. Actually, she's really good. And well, I'm pretty sure that Sun will shut down the Tracer player. Like
whoever that is. Exactly.
Yeah, whoever played the Buddy or Munchkin, I think Sun will shut him down. And well, but I'm really scared of Seoul's. Jaehong's place and Junva and Fleta. They 3 years are really solid, so I think they'll win.
Okay, Monty, who do you think is going to win that match?
I think it'll probably be Seoul. I think this week will be a wake up call to Seoul to really buckle down. And I know Seoul's coaches and the way that their ownership works and the way that their players work. And I think that they're probably just going to go insanely hard practicing this week for Valiant because I'm sure their fans are not very happy with their performance recently. A couple hard losses. And they also will want to maintain their stage 1 playoff seed. So I think they'll be practicing super hard this week. And I think they'll win. I think Valiant is going to have problems until they pick up a second more solid threat at DPS. And then if they do that, they sign a new player who's great. I thought AKM would definitely go to this lineup, so I'm super surprised that he would go to Dallas instead. He doesn't seem to be the right player for Dallas in terms of his skill set, but if you have, like ArK said, if you have Agilities who's great at the Genji, so you already have a Genji player, why would you not get AKM and you can play Agilities when you need a Genji? Like, I would just have agilities go to Genji, Junkrat, Roadhog, which he already does, and then have AKM come in and do Pharah, Soldier, McCree, and those secondary hit scan roles. He already has synergy with Soon and Unko. For me, that was the logical landing place for AKM, but I guess now they might have to go for, a Korean player instead. One player that I mentioned on Twitter that is turning 18 at the end of February 26th, it's a player named Architect. And Architect is a fucking great player who plays Genji, Pharah, Soldier, McCree. What do you think, What do you think about Architect?
Well, I actually met him in the Apex when I was in LW Red, and he was in Combox, and he just carried the game with Asher, who is now in Gladiators. They two just tried to crush the game. We really had a hard time with them. So I think if he comes to League, then he'll be really strong.
I think there are three possible teams that should be looking at Architect. One of them is obviously Valiant. Would be, I think, fantastic on that roster. One of them is Dallas Fuel, which is what I tweeted about. They need a solid Genji. Seagull is not that guy. And if you pair him with Effect, I think that's an incredibly good DPS duo. And I think the third is potentially the San Francisco Shock, even though he would be the only Korean player on that roster. He would also, I think, solve a lot of their problems if he was paired up with Baby Bay, who could play that hit scan role. So I think there are a bunch of teams that could really use this player. But I think he should be commanding a premium right now. There should be a bidding war over this player because he is one of the best talents that is going to be turning 18, and he's available to be signed during the signing window. So absolutely, I think some team has to get this guy.
Actually, I thought that like Houston or Shanghai Dragons or some teams who are using who doesn't have really solid Genji players were looking for an Architect, I think. I
thought Linkzer's a good Genji player, so...
yeah, that's right. I forgot Linkzer, sorry.
I don't know. I agree. I kind of agree with ArK. I think that a solid Genji is... We won't go into that too much.
You don't think Linkzer's a solid enough Genji for you guys?
It's not that Linkzer's not a solid enough Genji. It's just that he's just so much better on other heroes, and I feel like just having him be able to play hit scan it's just so much more valuable. Because then exactly, because then you can have that standout.
So you calling up
with Linkzer,
You calling up Flame? You calling up Hector, telling him get this Architect kid over to Houston?
We'll have to see.
Okay. So, since you referred to them before from the Valiant match, let's talk about Boston Uprising then, because obviously they're on a fantastic run. I think they've won let's have a look. I know they won the last 4 in a row. Yes, they've won 4 games in a row. One was obviously over London Spitfire. What is actually, when we talked about them in the past, Monty, it sounded like people thought they were a little bit one-dimensional. Have they expanded their grasp, as it were?
Yes. I think I think that we're going to look probably at the Valiant and London games and say this was a real tipping point for Boston, because before they were great at the Genji Tracer dive, but when they played against Seoul shut that down with an anti-dive strat, and then they tried other strategies and they were pretty bad at running all of them. But now what we're seeing is an improvement where they're able to run some really good Pharah strats because Dreamcasper is being a nut and hitting all his shots, and they're playing around the Pharah better. We saw that on Eichenwald and on Ilios yesterday. Or on Oasis, yesterday when they played against the LA Valiant. And then they can still run the dive strat. So I think they are diversifying slowly, and we're seeing them become a more cohesive team in terms of running comps and strategies. So this has been a team that's been on a pretty steady increase of skill, where week to week they just keep looking better and better and better. And both on a teamwork and an individual level, because Dreamcasper was a player who maybe you can talk about this, Muma, because you played in the sort of amateur NA scene with him, but he was on Tempo Storm, and he was basically, I remember watching a few games and I was like, okay, this guy's a decent Pharah, but now he's playing 9 different heroes some weeks, and he's really looking like a budding star player with a lot of flexibility. So did you play a lot against Dreamcasper in NA?
Yeah, Dreamcasper. I have a lot of respect for the guy because he shares a very similar journey to me in that we started on teams that weren't that great, and we kind of climbed up through like the lower tier teams, and I think that's also a big reason that he's so flexible is because he was tossed around from so many different teams that he had to play so many different roles. He like was on this team one week and this team was just like, hey, play Tracer, and then this team was like, oh, you play this and this and this, and then he just got tossed around a bunch, which is why he built so much time on so many different heroes that has really allowed him to be able to play this many heroes at like just such a high level. Hisfara, I think his Genji's his best hero, but I always thought Hisfara was a very close second. He always struck me as a very good projectile player. But I mean, like I said, with how much he got thrown around from team to team, even his like DPS or his hit scan is it's really good.
Okay.
So you're not surprised by him playing this well?
I'm a little surprised that he is playing just as well as he is. He is really. He's proving himself to be actually just like a world class, like one of the better DPS players in the league, in my opinion. I knew that he'd be like good in the league because like I remember when Boston was first announced and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, this roster is terrible," and I'm just like, how can you look at this roster and say it's bad? It never really made sense to me. But he's proving himself to be like I said, just world class.
So
indeed,
ArK.
I mean, we would have never said anything like that, mate. Don't worry. It's everyone else. Everyone else is wrong, not us.
ArK, so you when you guys played against Boston in your first week, and you beat them pretty easily, but we were surprised because they did win a map against you. They did win a map. But we talked about Architect and we talked about Asher, but another Conbox player is Gamsu. So you played against Gamsu. So what do you think about Gamsu on Boston? Because he's been really good, one of their best players. And Gamsu was in many seasons of Apex. He was a League of Legends pro player. What do you think from playing against Gamsu on Conbox and Gamsu on Boston?
First of all, I should talk about the Boston first. I think
okay.
everyone was like trash talking about Boston that they first rebuilt their roster, and well, I didn't understand it because like they have really solid tank player who called Gamsu, like you mentioned, and also I knew that like their Tracer player Striker is one of the best Tracer in the world because like well, I knew him a lot because like I was playing with him like for the year, not in the same team, but like in the enemies or something.
Okay, right.
And also I know that Neko is really good, and I knew that their coach Krusty is really good, who is Korean. So I actually didn't understand why all the guys are trash talking about them, and I expected them to end in Mediterranean. Like,
okay, we get it. So. Everyone was wrong. We were all wrong. You guys all knew all along. We were wrong. You win, ArK. You win, motherfucker. Great. Also, I like the way he was just running down the list there, like he was the fucking secret scout of Boston. He was the one playing Moneyball all along. It was ArK all along. He set the roster up, apparently. Fucking hell, all right. I also like the way, just for some reason, it's probably just because of the mic you're using, but every time you're about to speak, it's like Darth Vader or something. You make like this little breathing in, like, and you just start spitting fire. I like it. It's good. You got a little mannerism there already. Good.
I just put down the mic a bit.
He's actually used to playing with Sebiolbi now, who like. How do you deal with that in comms? By the way, Sebiolbi, because he inhales very sharply when he's playing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
he goes like while he's playing constantly. Is that hard to hear comms while he's doing that?
Like a velociraptor.
Actually, it was hard when I was like playing with him in the first time, but I'm getting used to it. So everyone's getting used to it, I think. Yeah.
Okay. That's when he's in full hunt mode.
Yeah, no, he goes into like the zone, man. It's great. If you watch him with the communications on, it's he definitely has like he goes into the state of tracerness. It's pretty fun. So Boston now. So Gamsu, you think he's still doing well in Boston? Was Gamsu a player? Because for me, Gamsu was a player that was great on Conbox, like an outstanding player. Are you surprised? Like, he was a good player on a not so good team. Let's put it that way. Conbox was never a great Apex team. Were you surprised, or did you expect him to get into Overwatch League and do well?
Actually, I haven't expected him to go to the Overwatch League because like his team was always in the low tier. So but he played really well. So I knew that he'll go eventually, like in the season 2 or something. But I think he's just doing really great. Like, everyone in Korea wants him to laugh in the match. Actually, like he's always having the hard time. So.
Oh, right. That's what you mean. Enjoy the match. Yes.
Enjoy it,
right.
yes.
Okay,
so, Muma.
It sounded perverse. You wanted to laugh in the match. What the fuck? What? Okay.
So, yes. as another main tank, what do you think about Gamsu? Because one of the traits I think you and Gamsu share is that you are, for me, you guys use your Primal Rage. Both of you use it really, really well. Like, I think you guys were probably like my favorite two Winston players to watch ult. What do you think about Gamsu as a player? Do you see similarities in your style?
Yeah, definitely. I think that Boston, they have very good synergy between their tanks and their dives. They're really well coordinated. And I think that's majorly in part to, I can't speak for certain, but what I would assume is Gamsu's calling. I would assume that just based off like how just coordinated their dives are and how well at playing dive they are, that Gamsu's got a big part of that. And I mean, that's also a big part of my role in the roster, since I am like the one player that like will be playing 100% of the matches just because I'm like the only main tank. So I have a big role in the calling in the team, and I would assume that Gamsu's like the same way. He's definitely, I actually really think that his Ryan's also like really good as well. I think that that's back from like even Conbox days. I knew that even from back then. But I have scrimmed against him on Ryan as well. Like I said, it is definitely one of it. He's very good at that hero as well. I think Boston is probably the only team in the league that isn't like an all Korean roster that I'm even like remotely worried about. They just,
Good job you play them this week.
So,
then.
You're playing them this week. You guys have a really hard week now, because we would have said before this week maybe, well, Boston won't be that hard. But now you guys have to play London and Boston this next week.
Yeah. It is going to be a tough week, but I think we can be fine. I think assuming everyone is healthy, and I think if we play our game, we can be fine.
So a piece of news that came out recently, to go back to London real quick, is that now apparently they are doing in-team scrims because they have 12 players, and now they have enough computers and also noise canceling headsets within their practice room that they can have two teams communicating at the same time and not interfere with each other. What do you guys think about this? Are you jealous that they have this? Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea? So, ArK, you used to be on a team that had two teams, LW Red and Blue. So tell us about your experience scrimming LW Blue versus Red.
First of all, the best thing is that you can hide the strats, like to all the teams, and you can just and try to like break it, and like so that you can trim the strat. I think that is the best thing. And second, I think they're doing it to like see who is better, maybe, to use in the roster. I think that's probably the reason they're doing it.
Do you think it's a big advantage for London that they can do that?
I think it's not really big, but it's kind of big, like, because they can use the strat. I think that's the only best thing.
Do you think that do you wish you had 12 players to practice like that?
I wish to, actually.
Okay.
Because, we want to hide the strat too, because we're using many strat this season, and we'll do it in the next season, next stage too. So,
okay. He saved himself there, because here's the thing, right? And before he said it was to hide the strat, you could have been like, "What do you mean? I thought all the players in your starting lineup are just great. Why would you want more players?" Oh, to hide the strat, right? Yes, of course. Only to hide the strat. Yes, I hear you. Wink, wink.
He's very confident. He knows he'll be starting. He'll be playing no matter what. Yeah. So he just wants to hide the strats.
Just get more players. I mean, they're not going to knock him out the lineup. So get as many as you want. But tell you what, coach, don't bother getting any support players. You don't need them. already got them. Just get more tracer players. Right, okay. What about, give me your predictions then. So ArK, who do you think is going to win out of Houston and Boston?
I think if Linger comes out, then maybe Houston will win 3-2. But if like Linger is not in condition or like coordination between teams are bad, then maybe they can lose, I think.
Okay. Monty, who do you have to win in this one?
I really want to see what Linkster does against London. So usually I try and avoid making predictions for the second game of each team until I see how they're performing that week. I think Houston should take this if Linkster's there, but I am curious about certain aspects, how they're going to handle the Pharah play. If Dreamcasper tries to bring that out again because he was so dominant, I'm sure they'll have some interesting tactics in store for us, though, courtesy of the coaches.
Because the thing that's crazy is when you bear in mind Boston plays Philadelphia and Houston, if they win both these games, their record's going to be like 7-3 at the end of the season.
Yep,
that's pretty nuts actually when you consider how they started the split off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, it's a good indication of Houston's skill. My fear about Houston is not how well they're doing right now, but how well they're going to do in a changed meta.
You mean Boston, right?
I was talking about Houston, but okay, Boston.
Right.
Boston is obviously improving dramatically as well. They've been on I'm not as concerned about the meta shift for Boston.
Okay.
I think they have a pretty deep bench of players that they can go to if they have to make any kind of changes. I think that with Houston, though, Muma, with what your team worries me a bit because I do wonder what happens because Jake has been good on the Junkrat and the Soldier, but he has struggled on other heroes, generally speaking. For example, Coolmat has literally only played Diva, I think, except for maybe some stalls at certain points in time. Your team as a whole, I believe, has a 98% Diva play rate, which is, I think the only other 2% was like that one game you played Spree on Control or whatever in the first week. So I do sometimes worry about your flexibility and your ability to do things like play Roadhog or play double hit scan effectively. And as patches change, I also think your Mercies are really good. And obviously you can bring in Boink as a Lucio player in the future if the meta changes. But I do wonder how meta resistant your team is as a whole. Have you thought about this? Do you disagree with me?
I actually do disagree with you completely, basically.
Great. Let's go.
Yes, I one of my favorite things about our roster is I believe that we are a very meta resistant team. I think that Clockwork, everyone always pegged him as a Tracer one trick just because that's what he played with on FNR GFE. I think his Soldier 76 and his McCree are both better than his Tracer.
I agree. I thought his Soldier in your match the other day was his best hero.
So he's the thing with his Tracer. I feel like what makes a good Tracer is just their ability to just go crazy, you know, like all the good Tracers are they're blinking everywhere. It's like Tracer seems to be a hero that's more dominated by your movement than your aim, and Clock plays with a very low sensitivity, so that's never really been him. He's just, when he can play that Soldier and just stand still and just shoot, that's when he is like at his best, because he's literally an aimbot. Like, it's kind of crazy.
Turret. That's what we used to call him in Counter-Strike when someone just stands still and shoots everyone. They're a turret.
Yeah.
Well, you know this guy because you used to play in TF2 with him, so you know his strengths intimately well, right? His mechanics have always been, everybody says Clockwork's mechanics were always ridiculous.
Yes, he was. It was not even close. There was not a player in TF2 who was even close to his level, and that was just because of just his mechanics and his just raw aim. Like, he just did not miss.
Okay. To be fair, if you're going to call yourself Clockwork, you better have fucking Spitfire stuff, right? Unless you're some like dodgy Rolly that someone bought at like the back alley in New York or something.
Also, we haven't played it much. We have not played a lot of Roadhog, even though I do wholeheartedly believe that Coolmat is he's very strong on the Roadhog.
He used to be. I know. Have you? Yeah, I remember he used to be all right on it.
Yeah, but I feel like D.Va is just such a dominant hero that there's kind of no reason to take him off of it. I'm sure you'll both disagree with me, but or all three of you even maybe. I think Coolmat is personally the best D.Va in the world. Can
we have a reason why? While we sit here shocked, trying to politely put together some sort of comment.
He's so good at being able to play all the different styles of D.Va, and he's just so fast at shifting. Like I have very good survivability on Winston, so it allows Coolmat to spend a lot more time either DPSing or peeling for our backline, which is what I think makes our supports such a formidable force. I think he's very good at knowing like when that I actually need protection and when I don't need protection, and he can just focus more on killing people or helping Raucus and Banny or whatever. And then, like I'm sure everyone knows Spree and his Zarya is just great. Yeah, I think, like I said, I really don't. I can't think of a meta where we won't have like proficient players on all the roles.
Yes, but the other thing about this though is that when we talk about your team, if Spree comes in, everybody basically knows it's because you're going to play Zarya, right? There's not a surprise factor there. So while you may have enough players to cover these roles, aren't you concerned that the lack of flexibility in individual players gives away your strategies before the map even starts?
I mean, yeah, to an extent, that's definitely an issue. I think if that. The way the meta on live servers is currently looking, I feel like Zarya is going to be very, very dominant again, like she used to be in the past. It's even more, so much to the point where having the other team know that you're going to have a Zarya isn't going to be that big of a downfall, because it's just you're going to have a Zarya. Like it's like the current meta where like the other team's like it's probably going to have a D.Va, you know, or it's probably going to have like a Zenyatta, I guess I should say, since there has been a little bit more flexibility without the with less D.Vas in the current meta.
Okay. So, ArK, you've said some nice things so far about Western players. And listen, I totally understand that when people are on a team with someone and they see that guy every day in practice, and they see the things he can do, oftentimes teammates kind of get really high on their teammates. Like, oh, he's so good. People don't understand how great he is. There's no way you think that Coolmat is the best D.Va in the world, ArK. Come on.
Yeah. Meko is the best D.Va in the world. I should say. No. Well, I think actually top tier D.Vas, I think there are no much differences, but like it's hard to find really much differences between Jumva, Meko, and Coolmat, I think, and also Fury. I think we should look for Uhyr, but it's kind of hard to see differences, but I think Meko is better at killing our Banglights, I think, because he is used to JJoNak.
Mm-hmm.
And it really fits our playstyles. So I think Meko is the best D.Va for our team, maybe. I should say it.
I think
sexy.
Look, I will say that Coolmat is definitely among the best D.Vas in the world. I don't know if I have a firm opinion on who I think the best one is. Certainly he's an excellent D.Va. I don't think you could make a replacement for Coolmat that would significantly upgrade your roster or anything. So I think he's definitely in contention or in the conversation for that role. There's also the fact that one of the best D.Vas in the world isn't even in Overwatch League, which would be Void. So that's a bit interesting as well, that we don't have that player in the conversation any longer because he's not actually in Overwatch League, did not make the transition with the rest of his team to London. So that said, I think Woohyal and Fury are both also very good.
So then I believe that his consideration for best D.Va is now null and
void. Yeah, that's right.
There we go.
I saw that one coming.
Left that one open, but okay. Okay.
But yes, I think Coolmat, definitely one of your strengths as a team has been that you do have that strong tank line, which when you have Spree to use as the Zarya, I understand is perhaps something that if you believe that Zarya is going to be a mandatory or near mandatory pick in the future, I won't be giving anything away. When you guys play as a tank line, one of the things that I've noticed that you do personally is, we talked about your Primal Rage a bit. You zone out supports a lot with your Primal Rage, and that's been something that you will go in solo, Muma, a lot of the time, and basically just cut off healing by yourself. Is this, I haven't noticed other Winstons have this same style, and particularly it's pronounced on payload maps, either escort or hybrid, where you understand when the supports are trying to reinforce, you'll wait till their tank engages, and many Winstons will try and stall out on the payload with a Primal Rage. What you will do is you will use Primal Rage, jump into their support line, and make sure that their entire team isn't getting any healing, because you're pushing them around corners and shit so that they don't have line of sight. Is this something that, this is a strategy that you guys use a lot, or?
Yeah, I do agree that it's probably a lot different than the way most Winstons use their Primal. The reason that I kind of have that play style is because of a lot of it's just because of Jake and how we play a pretty slow controlled style, just because we don't really have like that Tracer Genji, that amazing Tracer Genji dive where we can just go deep. I think that one of our stronger assets to our team is our ability to outplay other tank lineups, and I think starting the fights with like a little bit of back and forth with the tanks, and then me being able to go in and be able to zone their supports out like I can, and then have the rest of our team able to secure that fight when their team doesn't have healing, is what another big boon to like just like how much value I do get out of my primals.
Yeah, I've just noticed that you get an insane value out of them, and you use them in a very different way than most other tanks do. But and I also think that you're right about the tank line, and you punish support positioning extremely well. So that's, I wish we could watch the New York Houston matchup again when you guys have, this more solid roster now after week 1, because I'd really love to see how you guys would deal with JJoNak and try and control him. So it would be, that'd be a fun match for me to watch.
I am very much looking forward to that one as well. Yes.
Okay. Right. Every week of this show, because they came in, the Dallas Fuel, when they were envious, everyone knows how good they were. Every week has basically been like, right, when's it all going to turn around? When do the bright spots arrive? Now, here's the thing, Monty. They haven't really, mate. Like, they've won one game, and their last games are against Shanghai Dragons and Gladiators. Now, if they don't win both these games, everyone's going to be really sad.
Yes.
And I mean, what else? That's it, right? I mean, it's getting to the point, Monty, where you can't even look at it and go, well, at least they'll win those last games. They could lose to Gladiators, right?
I don't think they'll lose to Gladiators in the Gladiators' current state. I think that Dallas should at least win both of these matches. Let's start by talking about, if we're going to talk about Dallas, let's talk to the guy who recently played against Dallas, which was Mr. ArK. So what did you think? Because there were some close maps there. Temple of Anubis was really close. Oasis was pretty close. I think, what was your experience playing against the Dallas Fuel?
So, Mr. Monte, my opinion is that I think they're keeping track of what they're good at. Like, they're using always a hog at first, and they're just like swapping to Instant Diva if they're really good at it. And well, I think they're just finding their playstyle right now. I think it's a bit late, but they're really trying to find it. I think like they're trying to like make time flank with McCree or Widowmaker and just dive in with Instant Diva Chaser, or they just try to like hold with Orisa Hog using the She-Gold, or maybe Timon can do some Junkrat. I think like they're trying to find it, and I know that they're gonna find it at the end, and though the meta will change.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've also had a lot of player problems with XQC or Harry Hook getting sick, or I don't know. I think it's been rough for them, but they historically have been a good team. And they continue to play close maps or win maps. They did well against Seoul in the first week. They did pretty well against you, yesterday. So I think, are you surprised that they have not won very many matches?
Like, actually quite a bit, because like I know that Effect is a good tracer, and also I think their DPS are really good. Like Taimu and Seeger will do many heroes, and they're really good. And Effect is dominant tracer, so I expect them to like maybe doing Seeker, doing some Genji, and XQC doing some Winston and diving with same focus. But well, they weren't really good at that strat actually. So I think that's probably why.
So how much do you think when you play? Do you think every team should be able to play Genji, Tracer, Dive? Is that something that every team should do? Because they can't play it. So I think that hurts them a lot, because you can always use Genji, Tracer, Dive strategies on any map. So do you think that is a big problem for them because they can't change back to the Dive strat?
I think it's quite a big problem, because like if the meta changes, you can just test with Winston, Diva, Genji, Tracer if it works.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just using the Genji Tracer is good for all the metas. So well, it's quite bad.
So you think? Do you think the best thing to do is for them to get good at Dive, or find their own style, like you said?
For me, I prefer the Dive styles, but I think they'll prefer to find their styles, making new metas maybe.
That has been true of them in the past. That has been true of them previously. So you played against Dallas in week 2, Muma.
Yes. I remember this match really well, just because I remember walking off stage after it was over, and I was talking to Cool Matt, and he was like, "Why was that so easy?" And I was like, "I'm not really sure." It was not pretty. I'm not. It's so Fuel is just so weird to me right now, because I feel like nothing they're doing makes any sense at all. I think Seagull was a good pickup, but I think Seagull was the only good pickup. Well, okay. Also, I think XQC was also like a decent pickup if you had it paired with actually having a Genji player, because Coco's he's a very smart, methodical, pretty passive player, and I think that has worked really well in the past for them, because he existed to make space for Taimu, and Taimu was a very dominant hit scan in the past. And then I think XQC is just a complete and total opposite, where it's just like, just jump at you. And I think that if you have that...
In many ways.
In many ways, yeah.
In many ways.
I think if you have that, you want the Tracer Genji. And I think Seagull's a great projectile player. I think his Junkrat's actually really good. His Genji, I do not agree, is up to snuff.
I think he looked really bad on Genji so far. He hasn't played it a lot, but when he has played it, I have been really disappointed.
And I also think Effect is, he's obviously an incredible tracer. I think that he has been struggling a little bit, but I do think that's a big part of what's going on with the team. And then, like I said, it's just nothing makes sense to me, because it's like, I think if they had a Genji, they would be able to, like, in part, maybe it would help them and return to their former glory a lot. But instead, they're just like, let's sign AKM. It's just like, okay, what?
Hey, AKM said he was practicing Genji. Okay?
Oh, my bad.
I think it is weird. I think it is weird.
Maybe that's what they're going to... Maybe they're just going to have a Roadhog player, and then just Coco just Primaris, and just AKM Soldier, Taimu McCree, and they're just going to create this new meta. Or... I don't even know. It's weird. It's weird what they're doing right now. I wish I could understand it.
The timing on that as well, if he really is going to Fuel, is like, come on, man, what's this like? Yeah, we're looking for a player. I'm available. Now we're looking for someone who plays Genji. That's all I do nowadays. Love Genji. Plan on becoming a Genji main. Sign me up. When I sign.
Welcome to the team.
Exactly. Yeah.
I will say, I do have some hope for AKM to be able to play Genji, considering how excellent his Pharah is. So I'm not going to completely write off the fact that he will not eventually be able to be a good Genji. But you would think that you would not roll the dice on maybe a good Genji, right? That which is why I said Architect earlier is, I think, a better choice for this roster.
Yes. No, the thing about that is, yes, AKM's obviously a very talented player, so maybe he can come through on it, because at the moment, I mean, ArK even tried to like sell us there on the idea that like Seagull was doing really well on Genji. It's like at the moment, Seagull is like that classic saying, you've probably heard it before, which says like, if you give a man a reputation as an early riser, he can sleep till noon. It's like, yeah, he used to be amazing on it on his stream about 2 years ago when I was watching it, but like this is actually 2018. I don't know if you're aware of that, everyone. Like it's different. Okay. So, okay, here's the question. Yeah,
I think Seagull's still useful. I think his Junkrat has been really good. Yeah. I think his Hanzo is still good, and on maps like Junkertown, Seagull's a fucking great player to have in your roster because his hero pool is amazing for Junkertown, right? So,
okay. Here's the question I had though. So, is Dallas Fuel when you play them in scrims a similar team to the one that plays on stage?
They like we spoke on it a little bit earlier about how Fuel has been historically very good at like creating metas and coming up with very unorthodox things and like really being pioneers in like the way like just being able to bust out really weird things, and they do that a lot in scrims. It seems like, though, I think that's a problem with them because, like I said, they do that weird stuff in scrims, and on stage they'll try to do that weird thing, and then they lose, so they're just like, oh shit, this is bad. Let's go back to let's play the game the real way.
Yes.
But they just haven't spent any time practicing it, so they just kind of they crumble, you know. Yeah.
And what do you think, ArK?
Do you practice against Dallas Fuel a lot? Scrim? Yes, you.
Yeah. He wasn't talking to someone called Scrim. He meant does the New York Excelsior in their practice games play against the Dallas Fuel? And if they do, perhaps give us a flavor and characterize what these matches might be like.
I think we scream at them not a lot, but well, sometimes maybe. I should say sometimes. And I think like Muma said, they're really using some experimental stuffs, and I think it's kind of not good for like getting used to the comp you're gonna use all the time. Like for the Boston, they're using Winston Diva Genji Chaser in the scrims or something. Like they're gonna use it. We know it, and they'll just practicing it. We should say, well, like they're not getting used to their own comps. I think maybe make Chaser, but not a lot.
Okay. Do you guys still do that thing where all the Korean teams scrim and then they tell all the other Korean teams what the other teams are running just before they... Just kidding. Just kidding, ArK. It's just a joke, my friend.
No way.
Obviously, no one would ever... Obviously, you have to swear an oath never to admit that in public. So no, of course not. It's all just banter. Harmless banter. Okay.
That definitely hasn't happened in other games previously.
No, I don't know. It was just a crazy idea I came up with. Right, okay.
Speaking of scrim partners, do you guys have primary scrim partners? I'm just curious. Each of you, do you prefer to scrim some teams, or do you change it based on who you're playing that week? Obviously, you change it who you're playing that week, but do you find yourself scrimming some teams more than others?
We have Shock. They don't have match with stage 1, so.
Oh, so you don't scrim the Valiant Muma, even though you don't have a match, but New York scrims Shock all the time because they don't have a match against them. Interesting.
Wow, that's true. It really makes you think. I'll have to forward this to the necessary people.
So, but do you have like scrim partners that you prefer to scrim with, or?
Not really, to be completely honest. We kind of play a lot of the different teams. We have a very versatile scrim schedule. We like to play all the teams.
Okay, well then how about this then, ArK? Since you don't have to play them, why don't you tell us, if you've played Shock so much, maybe you can tell us something about Shock, because they haven't looked that great in a lot of their games in the actual Overwatch League. So what can you tell us about the San Francisco Shock?
I'm actually shocked by it because like they're really good at scrims with us, actually. So we're really impressed of it. Like why aren't they like doing that? Like they just did really great in the scrims, and why are they not performing well in the games? We're really wondering about it, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's funny that
Is it because Dak dies first every fight?
Sometimes
there we go.
Not
Yes.
a lot, but sometimes.
He recovered it, yes. Yeah. His secret is to just say sometimes, and then in doing so, that's his like safe word is sometimes. Okay, right?
Sometimes, okay.
So what were you going to say, Muma?
Yeah, it's funny that he says that because we haven't scrimmed Shock in a while, but we did scrim them a lot in the early season, and like I noticed the same thing. I'm not sure if it was because we were in such a bad spot early season, or if it's actually just that Shock are like so much better in scrims. But when we were playing them, I was actually like incredibly impressed with Shock early season, like in our scrims. I always thought they were like super duper good on, and I also think Boston is a team like that as well. I think Boston's a lot better in scrims than they are on stage. You agree, ArK? Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, San Francisco does have a bunch of newer players who are, I think, probably less used to the stage, so that could be a part of it. Yeah, it is interesting to me, though, because sometimes San Francisco, they just stand there and do nothing. It seems like they're panicking on stage where they want to execute a strat, but instead they just don't do anything at all. They just stand there. I'm like, what are you doing right now? Can you please like attack them or something? Because they have a very defensive style, but even then it just comes out in weird ways. The other thing I've noticed about San Francisco is for some reason, whenever it gets into like overtime, say they're defending on a point, they're defending on like horizon point A, and they've held all to overtime and it looks like they're going to hold. All of a sudden, when overtime starts, they seem to like freak out and panic and then just randomly lose fights that they shouldn't lose. So it seems like there's some sort of mental issue there where they're not holding it together. Like when things get stressful, they just fall apart at the end. Which is sad to see because sometimes they put together some pretty good defenses and then they just roll over and die. So I'm not sure what's causing that.
Okay. Because let me think. Okay, so this week they play the Gladiators and then they play Seoul Dynasty. Do they have a chance to beat Seoul Dynasty? Is that even reasonable?
No.
Is it not possible? There's no matchup element that could even allow it?
No. But they do have a chance to beat Gladiators. I think Gladiators has been a team on the decline. I think that if we look at where the Gladiators started the season, they're like the reverse Boston, right? Boston's been going up and up and up. Gladiators have sort of been falling down further and further and further. I guess they beat Florida last week, but I think we're just not going to talk about Florida recently. You guys, by you guys, I mean Houston, Muma. You guys destroyed the Gladiators. They got 3 points in that entire series. All of them were on Nimbani. You full held them on 2 other maps. You didn't let them get a point on Control. You're not even good at playing Control. So what do you think about the Gladiators right now?
Yeah, they're just riddled with inconsistency. That's all it is. I think that Shaz and Big Goose are actually like really, really good.
Well, they're definitely the best parts of this team. I think nobody's going to argue with that.
I think Big Goose he's a little bit weaker on the Mercy, but I think he's very, very strong on Lucio, so we might be able to see a lot more in the next meta. Everyone else is it's just inconsistency. I feel like I don't think Remix is a bad tank, but he has been a bad tank for the last couple of weeks. Same with Bishu, and then same with like both Asher. He's like, I think might be the most inconsistent player in the league. It just seems like all their players other than like their supports are you just never know what you're gonna get out of them.
Okay. So obviously then Bishu is the exception that proves ArK's rule that all the Diva players are basically just all pretty good and similar level there. Well done, that confirms it's fine.
Well, Bishu has spent an extraordinary amount of time out of his mech recently. He gets demeched nearly instantly in every fight, and I'm not sure if he's not getting this healing he needs from his supports or if he's positioning in weird ways. But I've just noticed, I haven't gone back and like done the research yet, but it has been apparent to me that he has been demeched first a ridiculous amount of time in their games. And once you demech the Diva, it's like it's basically like GG for that fight. Like you can't let the diva get out of the mech, otherwise it just ruins your comp.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, ArK, what do you think of the LA Gladiators?
Like Muma mentioned, I think their supports are quite solid. I think because Shad is one of the best gen in Western teams. Maybe
there we go. I wonder where that sentence is going. I like that. It's good. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
But I was quite impressed that their DPS would be really good because, like, I knew that Asher was really good when he was in comp box, and well, hydration and drop were all so famous of their like projectiles, and Shurfur was really good at Widowmaker or some kind of hitscans too. So I was really looking forward to their plays actually. But for me, I thought that their tanks are not making the plays maybe, but well, yeah, like Monte mentioned, maybe they're not getting enough heals. So I think it's kind of like teamwork things maybe is their problem, I think.
Well, I think what's weird is that, like you're saying, the inconsistency, because sometimes their team looks really good. I think they played pretty well, actually, against the Valiant. And then they've sort of fallen down this hole, again, even in spite of their win against Florida, where they haven't looked great. And when they lose, they lose really hard. It's like these matches aren't even close. It's like they either play an okay team close and maybe win, or they get absolutely dumpstered. So I'm not sure why they can't play other or good teams in some sort of close fashion, right? It's like a close loss or just getting absolutely wrecked. So I think maybe they're a very emotional team, and once they start to lose, they just lose even harder and harder and harder.
They're also a team that only has 7 players, so they don't have a lot of options for subs. You can't pick people out.
Their only subs are DPS too, and they've rotated Asher out of the lineup a lot of the time, and now Sureforce playing Tracer again, which I don't think was the purpose of getting Asher onto this team. Why do you bring in a Tracer specialist if you're going to run Sureforce? Because it's true, he's been more flexible onto other heroes, but I don't know. It's very strange. I think this team definitely needs some more players to improve it. I don't think they're going to get any better than they are without additional signings.
I'd also like to their coaching staff. I'd like to mention that. I think who it's Deepay, right?
Deepay, yes.
He's the only coach that the team that he's coached was Kongarna. If my memory serves me correctly.
I know he was the coach for Kongarna. I do not know if it was the only team.
I'm not sure what other teams he's coached, but I thought that was interesting as well. That just
well, let's just put it this way: P1, the organization that was hired by Stan Kroenke to manage this team, is not a highly lauded, highly decorated esports management org. Are they, Thorin?
Right now.
Like, they're pretty new overall. They were not selected for LCS franchising. When they were not selected for LCS franchising, Stan Kroenke, for I don't know what reason, decided that they were going to be the ones to run the LA Gladiators. Not like Stan Kroenke has a great history of managing professional sports teams either. His MO is usually to not invest very much money and sort of just let his sports teams be middle of the pack, not going after star player signings or anything. Pretty uninspiring as far as ownership goes. So I don't know what we're going to expect from this team, but based on the ownership's history, the management's history, I think they're probably destined for a long period of mediocrity.
Okay, because I mean, this is a team where my concern with them is like, not only are they not doing that well now, but unless they get extra players, surely their lack of substitute possibilities means that they would be in even more trouble if the meta switches.
I just think they've hit their ceiling. Like, I don't see a way that this team gets dramatically better without additional players.
Like, why isn't this a team going ham trying to get AKM?
I'm not sure AKM would really solve a lot of the problems on this roster, actually. Again, I think that these guys have hit the nail on the head, that it's been some of the inconsistent tank play Maybe they need a second, like another DPS player. But honestly, I think hydration has been one of the bright spots on this team. This guy went from a one-trick Pharah on CLG into a pretty decent multi-hero threat. He reminds me a lot of Dreamcasper, actually, because when I think about Boston, I think about Dreamcasper, and I think about hydration. They've developed simultaneously into some very good DPS players with a lot of versatility, and they've been two of the biggest surprises, I think, coming into Overwatch League. So I don't think hydration is really the issue. Maybe you get, and yeah, I don't think it's the DPS. I really do think that we go back and it's either the synergy with the tanks or the tanks themselves that are causing problems.
Okay. Right, let's talk then about, because actually, as you mentioned, Monty, I think we'll leave the Florida Mayhem out of it. Like, they've had enough punishment for now. Let them just play.
Let's ask a question. Okay. We can ask one question. We know they've signed Zappas now, so
right, yes,
Zappas as a player doesn't maybe solve a lot of their needs if on paper. So if you look at him, he was recently the flex tank player for Giganti. I don't think Manitin has been the primary issue with the Florida roster. So is Zappas going to play DPS? Is he going to play support? These are positions that I think are in greater need because Logix is underperforming still and their supports have been pretty bad. So is Zappas going to do that? I was in favor of them getting Zappas simply because, even as a coach, because I think that knowing Zappas, he's an extremely good leader and he's a very mature person. So do you think Zappas, what do you think about this pickup, Muma? Do you know Zappas at all?
I personally do not know him, but I've heard many things from Linkser. Linkser speaks very highly of him and has many good opinions on him. If it wasn't for like Linkser talking to me about him, I probably would look at this pickup and think it's even more confusing than Fuel picking up AKM. But after talking to Linkser a lot, I feel like it might make a little bit more sense, just in that like he's such a good leader, and I feel like having that 6-man roster, they could really benefit from like just having that leader who also has like a lot of he's just versatile too. Like he could even he's been historically an off tank, but I do think he could fill that support role for Mayhem.
Well, he has played support.
He
has played support in the past.
I think that's what they need most. I think Mayhem has a few holes in their roster, but I think more so than anything, they need that support player. I think Zebosai is like having him be able to play Mercy and then Zupe on Zen still would be a lot stronger than what they have currently.
Yeah, it's worth noting too, Zappas is also older. He's 28. So he also was doing his master's in law in Finland while playing with NIP. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do without actually having to go to school or be, otherwise engaged. And he has played, when he was playing on NIP, he did actually play the flex support role at times. So we know he can do that. And I just think like, even if he doesn't play and even if he's just there to be more of a coach, he's so good. He's such a good leader, and it's good that Linkser, feels the same way. As for other pickups, obviously they still need to make other roster signings, and I think they probably will. So we'll just have to wait and see who they get.
Okay. So as I said, there's not really that much point talking about Florida Mayhem. Not much has changed. It's still, there's nothing they can do. Is it just think up more? I mean, like the joke really is they do just put all their time in and think of the new intro that they're going to do each week. Like, well, that's the best part of the week. Cool, there we go. Make sure we all nail it. We've got to be all fucking coordinated when we do this Karingan or whatever the fuck it was out of Naruto. Okay. So
hey, they have to keep their spirits up somehow, right?
Okay, certainly. I mean, bringing in another Finnish person, that's probably the one area where I don't imagine they're the best, motivators,
I think Zappas
fairly
is
dour
good.
People.
I think Zappas is not a dour person, but I think he is going to bring a lot of leadership and vision to this team that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And if they couple that with getting some more players, I think that could be a good opportunity for them. What they do with Logix, I don't really know. Logix is still, when he performs well, Mayhem does better, but he's been pretty inconsistent. Do they need another Tracer player? Do they get Davin to come into this roster? Do they trade Boston for Mistakes, who's just, Striker's been so good that Mistakes is just sitting there slowly dying on the bench? that's a player that I think might be a good pickup for them.
Okay. So the other team I wanted to talk about, though, was Philadelphia, the Fusion, because they have been all over the place this entire season. Like, there's no logic to their team whatsoever, because on the one hand, they're fucking up this New York Excelsior team, taking care of them. Straight after that, they'll come right out of that, barely beat the Shanghai Dragons. Then the Valiant team, just get completely murked by them, but then come right back and still look after these things. So where is the Philadelphia Fusion at, Monty?
Well, they dive really well. They play a flank-heavy play style. They only try and kill your supports. So I'm sure ArK enjoyed looking at, his spawn room a lot when they played against Philly. Did you guys? So here's my first question. You guys were playing Seoul the next day. Did you even prepare for Philadelphia? Did you do anything at all?
Actually, we prepared like an hour. So.
Oh, okay. Well, the truth comes out. I suspected that was the case. You did take them too lightly. You got punished for it. So
yeah,
I think you learned a lesson. So how was playing against Carpe and Shadowburn, because they killed you a lot?
Actually, I thought I knew that Shadowburn and Carpe would be really good, but I haven't expected that good, actually. And, well, I thought that Froggy won't do, he'll not be good at diving at all. So, yeah, I think we just didn't, prepare a lot. That's all. Froggy was just diving in. No matter he dies or not, he just dived into us, and Genji and Tracer were really good, so we're just having a hard time of it. And we just tried to do Genji Tracer too, so try to get their support ults out and using our Genji's ult, but Boombox was far away from the main fight circumstances, so it was really hard to get his Transcendence out, so our Transcendence was used first, so we were having a hard time of Shadowburn's Genji's Blade, maybe. I think that was the main problem.
Okay, so based on that, you guys said you played the Genji Tracer dive. Do you wish you had played more Junkrat or tried to play McCree more, or what do you think you could have done to be better?
I think we should have done more defensive comp, like Junkrat and McCree maybe.
Okay.
Or maybe we could just have used Pharah maybe. I think there might be another answer, but we haven't used it, so.
So you think it's a mistake to try to play dive against Philadelphia's dive?
Yes.
Okay,
I think
they're too good.
We thought that we're gonna compete, I think we just sometimes miss our expect so much. We just think that we're gonna win Outlaws with some poke comps using Junkrat, but we lost a bit, so we swapped the Genji Tracer, and we thought that we were gonna win Genji Tracer with Philadelphia, but I think teams that use the same comp all the time have some kind of strat about it, some complicated strat. Boombox was far away, so we cannot get the trans out first or something. Some kind of thing like that. Yeah.
But if Boombox is far away, he can't heal the dive, so you should focus on the DPS who are diving you, right?
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Muma. Froggy is a fucking weird tank. He plays Winston entirely differently to everybody else. He dies a lot more. What do you think about Froggy's style as a tank player? Because he seems to die to give Carpe and Shadowburn more space. He's a distraction.
I mean, as someone who has basically the complete opposite playstyle, I don't think it's good. I don't think that that's the correct way to be playing Winston. I feel like you can do just the amount of space you can make you can make so much more space through diving, but also staying alive. You don't need to die on your dives. There's obviously circumstances where it is okay, and it is understandable that when you have Carpe and Shadowburn, those are the dives you want to be making, because once Shadowburn starts getting resets, you're probably going to win the fights. So it kind of does make sense sometimes, but I feel like it's just the only thing they do, and it's just, hey, we respond, let's kill Fraggy, let's have Fraggy just jump into him and die. Hey, we respond, let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again. And I do find that a little strange.
To put some numbers to this, so in the Philadelphia-New York game, so Janus played most of the game, Mono played a little bit, but Janus, for instance, had 34 kills and 31 deaths, okay? As the losing player. And as the winning player, when Philadelphia Fusion won, Fraggy had 21 kills and 46 deaths. So he was minus 25, while Janus was plus 3, and Fraggy won this match. Like, he dies so much.
I'm pretty sure if you look at the stats for our match as well, they're very similar to that, if I recall correctly.
I'll look it up for you.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, Monty, actually, as a team, that's the thing. Obviously, because they have the big win over Excelsior, people might want to be like, oh, they're a team on the rise. They are the team out of the 5 and 3 teams who have won the least maps. They've won 5 series, remember, and they've only won 17 maps. So even when they win, they give up loads of maps. When they lose, they got loads of. They've only 4-0 fuel. That was it.
But here's the thing about Fraggy. Like, he continues to be on good teams. He won with Giganti, European Contenders Season 1. He's probably a better Reinhardt player than he is a Winston player. But his crazy, ultra aggressive suicide style actually causes him to win games. So at a certain point, you sort of have to respect it.
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say that he's like bad or anything. It has been working in the past. I think that may in part be a reason that their team has so much inconsistency issues, because there's sometimes when you're just literally killing off your Winston over and over again, sometimes you're going to get the resets and sometimes you're not. Because if you don't get the reset when Fraggy's literally killing himself, you're going to lose the fight probably.
That's true. So against you, when Philadelphia beat you, Fraggy was 24 kills and 46 deaths. So he was minus 22. And you, Muma, were 31 kills and 30 deaths. You were plus 1.
Yeah. Yeah. That was also part of our first week.
I know, but it's very similar. Like, those are nearly identical stats between Janus and you compared to Fraggy in games that you both lost 3-2.
I think a big problem with that match, not only our roster inconsistencies and like the just how big of a mess we were week 1. I don't remember exactly what team you were talking about, Monty, but you were talking about how they had 2 different map sets both weeks. We had a completely different map set against Excelsior as we did against Fusion, even though the matches were 2 days apart. Like, Excelsior had the same 4 maps. We had all our maps were different, and then also we had nothing on Fusion. Like, they didn't play preseason. They skipped out on that, so we could not review anything. We just went into that match completely blind. I think had we thought about it a little bit more and just like, if we just looked at their roster a little bit more, I think we would have had a lot more success, just because we could be like, okay, you see Shadowburn, you see Carpe, you know this team's going to be permanently running Tracer Genji. And then you have Linkser, who played on a team with Fraggy. We understand his playstyle and stuff. It should not have surprised us as much as it did, but I think that's just a big important in how bad we were week 1 and how big of a wake up. I mean, I think it was just such a big wake up call as well. I don't think we would be as dominant as a team as we are right now had that first week not have been such a train wreck for us.
So is the Philadelphia Fusion ever going to be a good team consistently? Because they have nearly lost to the Shanghai Dragons, okay? But they have also beaten New York. So they have nearly lost to the worst team in the league, and they beat the best team in the league. Do you see them achieving consistency at any point in time, or are they just going to be the upset machine of the wild card of Overwatch League?
I have never watched Sado play, but I have heard very, very, very good things. Okay. Like, incredibly good things. So I think that when he's able to come into that roster and play that Winston, I think this team has a lot of potential, actually. And I also think that Fraggy is undeniably one of the best Reinhardts in the world. I think he plays a very, very aggressive style, and it works very, very well. And I think he's very, very good at doing that. So I think that they have the potential to, but I do want to say that I think that their DPS is their DPS lineup's a little odd to me, because I think that I'm not sure if there's a lot of versatility there. I don't know EQO like hardly at all. I don't know what he plays at all. And I know Snillo was known as like just a tracer player, and that's literally Carpe. So I think if they're down the line, they might have troubles in that regard. But yeah.
So ArK, what do you know about Sado? He's never played on a professional team. He's been banned for account boosting. He has a very bad reputation in Korea. Tell us about Sado.
Actually, he has worse reputation than you think. I think he is the worst one who have the worst reputation like in the Korea right now. Like, because he was attend to boosting. Account boosting, so
okay, likes money, cool. So
yeah, but probably half the Korean pros account boosted. He was just the one who was caught.
No, you're right there, Monty. I mean, he did commit the crime of getting caught. Now that's stupid. Don't ever do that. If you're gonna listen, kids, if you're gonna account boost, do it responsibly, do it privately, do it on a second account. You boost accounts for fuck's sake. How are you getting caught? You know how to log in and out of accounts. How are you getting caught? That's like you've trained yourself not to get caught. You got caught, you idiot. Learn. Okay.
Okay, so we know he has a bad reputation in Korea. ArK, is he a good player?
I think he is kind of dominant, Winston. He's really good at it. I know he's really good. I saw how he plays in some like not a pro team, but like some amateur team. When he was in amateur team, I watched him play, but he was really good in that time. So I think he'll probably really, really, really good when he comes back in the stage 4.
Okay. So maybe Philadelphia, maybe they will be a good playoff team suddenly.
I think for now, they don't have stability. Like they're really not consistent. So I think they'll just wild card for now, but I think they might be really dominant in the stage 4, I think.
Okay. Right. There is a matchup we have to talk about, but I've left it till the end. So, Muma, who do you think will win out of the London Spitfire and the New York Excelsior?
New York.
Well, for what reasons, though?
I think that in this splits, just the power of JJoNak is just it's.
Have you got his poster on your fucking bedroom wall or something?
Have you heard about our Lord and Savior JJoNak, the king of the stage, the god of Zenyatta?
You should see the mantle I have of him in my room. It's crazy. There's power pedals and candles and pictures. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
So basically, all things are possible through JJoNak. Right? I understand, right? Yes.
I just think that New York is the one team that really gets the value out of Zenyatta that's possible to get out of it, just because of how much they play around him. It's just a solid roster all around. Meko and Mako.
Zenyatta? What is the value? Tell us, because you said earlier he might be the very best hero right now. Why is he the best hero?
He just has his defensive ult is so good. It charges so quickly with how good Mercy or how strong Mercy is right now. He's so good at being able to be kept alive. Like Lucio is really good at peeling for Zenyatta as well. But like in the past, Winston's were able to just kill Zenyatta's, but Winston literally cannot, like alone, he literally cannot out damage the Mercy's heal on him. So if you're zapping, like my playstyle is kind of harmed by that a lot, because like if I jump on his JJoNak and I'm alone like trying to zone the supports, it is impossible for me to kill him, just because ArK can just hold mouse one, and like that's when you try to shift your attention to ArK or something, but then he just guardian angels around the map because Mercy's dumb, and then you have JJoNak just pelting you the entire time. And they also have, like we talked about SVB a little bit, arguably one of the best tracers in the world right now. Libero has just such a versatile hero pool and so good at projectile. It's just, and then like I said, I also am not as knowledgeable about London as I should be, just because I didn't follow Apex much and we haven't scrimmed them as much.
It's not your job. Well. I mean, your job, your coach's job is to develop the strategies, not your job. So
I do watch all their matches, so I do know that about them, and I'm sure our coaches are literally like prepping strats for them right as we speak. But
Well, then obviously that's also why you're going to win, because obviously what will happen is you'll give London such a hard game that they'll be like emotionally drained, you know, they'll have to reconsider everything about their team. And then New York just comes in with the tag team move, the chair over the head, the finisher, you know. Yeah.
We'll knock them down and you guys can pin them, you know.
Exactly. Okay. Monty, who do you think wins that game?
I want to see. I was so surprised by London this past week with the roster they were running that it's very hard for me to say. Like, for example, we talked about it, but they started in their first match against Seoul. They started 4 members of GC Busan with Kongdu DPS. Then we got the Prophet Bird Ring duo back for the rest of that series when they played against Shanghai Dragons. And I think that was our first total shutout of Overwatch League, where literally Shanghai didn't get a single point in 4 maps. We saw the return of the entire GC Busan roster. So I don't even know what they're doing anymore, because they started playing this season with like almost no members of GC Busan, and now they've gone back to GC Busan. And now they're playing Junkrat. Now they're playing anti-dive, when before they were playing very aggressively with either a lot of tanks and Reaper or dive themselves. So I have no idea what strategy they're going to come out with against New York. So it's tough. I think I will go with New York. Pending, again, I don't like to make predictions before I see a first match of the week. So I reserve the right to change this when I see how they play against Houston and what they're playing that week. But I think New York, I do wonder if they're going to go back to dive, because that's how Philadelphia beat New York, and try and focus down some of the supports. I don't think their Junkrat style will be as effective against New York, considering New York can match that and also plays a more defensive style in general.
I saw there was a thread on competitive Overwatch where it said that according to the Winston Lab stats, Prophet is both the #1 Genji and the #1 Tracer. And like, for example, on Genji, he had like the highest first kill ratio or something.
Sure, yes. And here's the thing about Prophet, though, and this was our stats guy, Captain Planet, was tweeting about this statistic on Winston's Lab. Winston's Lab heavily weights final blows in their rating. So remember what Winston's Lab can and can't do. So what Winston's Lab can do is track who is killing whom, but they do not have access to damage per minute or other damage stats. So they can't rate players based on how much damage they're doing in a game, because they don't have access to the API. Right. Meanwhile, we have access to the API, which I hope everybody will have access to. One of my goals is to help make sure the API is public in the future. That is being worked on, just FYI. I think I don't know for sure if I want it to go public. I don't know for sure if it will be. I have not heard that it won't be, though, from internal. And I think a lot of people support that at Blizzard, that, you know, we give all the information out there so that places like Winston's Lab can do even more cool stuff than they do already. Okay, so all that said, Prophet does not do the most damage per 10 minutes as Tracer. We do have other Tracers that are more damaging, but what he does do is finish kills, and that's what Winston's Lab is tracking. So he's more of an executioner style Tracer. He is really, really good at following up on target selection from his teammates and just making sure somebody dies after they take that initial damage. He is also not so much concerned with attacking tanks. So it's about following up on his team's target selection. I think that's where Prophet really shines. ArK, do you agree with me?
Yes.
Yeah, he's really good at. He's like the executioner Tracer. He's just fucking cutting off heads everywhere. Stealer. Yeah, basically.
He's the douchebag. Yeah.
So that's what Prophet's good at, and that skill in particular is extremely important on Genji, because Genji resets after those kills. So it is more important as a Genji player to get final blows or to contribute to kills and follow up on your team's damage, because that will give you the dash resets. So that's one of the reasons why Prophet is so good at Genji. And obviously just being a man up is valuable in general, but he's not the player who's going to do the most damage. He's the player who's going to follow up on that damage the best, is how I would characterize Prophet.
Okay.
But if we take that to the next step, which is what happens when Prophet plays against Sabielby, who will zone him out of a fight, do they have the follow-up damage without Prophet being engaged to make sure that they get these kills? It's a good question. It's going to be, I mean, that matchup is going to be super hype, whether it's Prophet or Birdring playing Tracer versus Sabielby.
Fair enough. Okay, tell us then, ArK, about this matchup that's coming up. What do you think of it?
First of all, like Monte said, I want to see the Houston match first. Actually, like it's actually hard to expect what they're gonna use, but probably dive. I think probably dive. So I think we'll just look for the Houston match first, and then prepare from that time maybe. And I think we'll just focus on how to shut their tanks out or DPS out, like we've done since like from the Houston match.
So you guys actually have 3 of the same maps. So Eichenwald, Temple of Anubis, and Dorado will be played versus Houston, and you're going to play on those maps against London as well. So you're actually going to get a lot of information, I think, going into that week. And also, I think it helps that Houston is a more defensive style of team. So you'll see what they play against another defensive style team. I think you guys are actually going to get a lot of information out of the Houston map. Sorry, Outlaws. You have to play them first. That sucks.
Unlucky.
Okay. They're just the canary in the coal mine.
Never lucky.
Then we see how it goes. Okay. ArK. Since we're the episode's starting to wrap up now, so I got to ask you this though. Since you said before you were kind of into the idea of, like, you know, you're willing to banter a little bit, trash talk. So here's my question for you. Okay, who do you think is the most overrated player in the Overwatch League?
I will. It's really scared to say it, but I would say Poco.
Poco.
Oh, okay. So you like the fact that they've been playing more Hotba?
Yeah, actually, I think Hotba is a better player. Maybe it's because I was team the Hotba before, but I think Poco is overrated a bit
because of all the kills and that he was getting on the D.Va, Destructs, etc.
Yeah, it's true that he is the one of the best D.Va who can use the self-destruct in the best way, but in our match, you can look at for it. We knew that Poco is really good at D.Va self-destruct, so we didn't give him like 5 kills maybe self-destruct in the whole match. So I think they can just prepare for it. So we kind of thought that Poco was a lot easier than our thought, but their DPS was much stronger than our thought.
Okay, I like it. Nice answer.
I actually agree with that a lot. I was thinking when you were talking about Fusion, Monty, you specifically talked about like you were confused why they kept subbing out Poco, and it's funny because I was thinking that as well. I think Poco has undeniably the best bombs in the league, but I think Hoppa is just his defensive playstyle just caters so much better to his team, and I think. Yeah, I agree with ArK a lot.
Cool.
Okay. Right, well then let's go with like a positive one to end on then. Monty, who would you have said for that, by the way?
Most overrated player?
Yeah. For you, at least.
It's hard because we have to talk about like who are the fans hyping up currently?
Well, funnily enough, I guess by the logic of what you just said, in a way you could have said Prophet, right? Because by those raw stats.
I think Prophet's super good. I think Prophet's really fucking. I think it's really fucking good. I don't know about that.
Best DPS in the world, though, is he? So.
I don't know. It's hard to say because I think Poco, based on what these guys are saying and their opinions, is definitely good because he has been hyped up and a lot of fans. And I myself today was talking about it's interesting that he isn't being played because of this. The coaches have said it's because of stylistic differences and Hotba is a more defensive player.
There was that guy on the Outlaws who everyone was raving about after the World Cup, and I kept thinking it was one match, just one match.
Jake's been playing well. I mean, we haven't heard a lot of hype recently, but earlier when Munchkin and Bunny came in, talking about them as being great Tracer players, they haven't shown up, honestly, as much as I thought they would, for sure. They've been rather quiet, especially in some of these more recent matches, which has been disappointing. I would say also that Surefour historically was a very hyped up player who hasn't been doing much, honestly, for the Gladiators. It's not that he's been abysmal, but he's been very average overall and not making any kind of big breakout plays. So that would be another one that I would be looking at. Agilities is another one that I would say. When he was in Contenders, he was doing great, getting a lot of kills with the Dragon Blade, initiating very effectively, but I think his play style is very predictable now, where he's going to be engaging fights with Dragon Blade. He's going to be going in first. And so if you know that he's doing that, you can pick him off before the fight even begins or nullify the effect of his blade. Because if you see him dashing in, you can fall back and make him waste his ultimate. So those are some of my picks, I think.
Okay. So the last one I thought we could do to end on a positive, and obviously I will ask ArK this first because there's sort of a theme running here. So, ArK, who do you think the best player in the Overwatch League is?
I think it's really hard question, actually. I gotta think about it.
because you don't know which of your teammates is going to get the most mad that you didn't say them.
Though, is teammates okay, or
say it for anyone, mate? Yeah, anyone.
Well, I think it's JJoNak for now.
Okay, how about not from your team? Who's the best non-Excelsior? The real award. Who's the best non-Excelsior player in the league?
I think maybe Prophet. Maybe I think Prophet or Gesture. I'll pick.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Gesture. I heard that Gesture is really good at shot calling and diving in, and he is really good at sneaking too. So, and I was with those two for a long time, and they're really developing a lot, especially Prophet. I thought he would not be that good in the both Genji and Tracer, and he was really getting better as the time goes, and he's really dominant right now, I think.
Okay. Muma, who do you think is the best player in the Overwatch League?
I've always thought that's such a tough question because there's just the roles are so different.
Of course.
Yes,
we know It's a tough question. It's an opinion.
All those fucking DPS players taking all the spotlight. They don't even do the real yards. They're just the sprinkles on top of the cake. We all know that.
I'm going to say Striker.
Okay,
interesting.
That's bold.
I'm going to say Striker. I wanted to say JJoNak because I'm, my mans will do him and all that. But
you don't want to get a big ego or anything. So
the reason that I'm going to give it to Striker instead of JJoNak is because while I do agree that JJoNak is the best aggressive Zenyatta in the world, I think that his ults are not the best, and it's kind of hard to give him that title as just the best player in the league when you have a team that's just so oriented around just him. And then there's a team like Boston where you just have Striker just literally killing everything, just nonstop, just such a consistent player and such good ults, and yeah.
Okay, who's your vote go to, Monty?
Well, I'll pick in current form. So for me, this last week, the best player in the Overwatch League was probably Gesture. I agree with that. Certainly London had an easy match against Shanghai, but Gesture is a player there. I've said it many times, but for me, Apex Season 4 Finals, Gesture was the best player in the finals. I think he was the MVP for me, 100%. He has been such an extraordinary Winston. The way he controls space is amazing. And you really saw that against Seoul, where basically him and Woohyal made sure that there was no backline threat for basically that entire match. And he enables his DPS in such crazy ways. And I don't even think London, I don't think I think the weakest part of London are their support players, and yet the support players often don't die because of how good their tank line is. So I really think Gesture is playing like on another level right now, and it's been fun to see.
Okay. I actually like the JJoNak pick. I think that's a pretty good one because when I first started watching Overwatch League, and obviously like I've never seen that player play before. Normally,
nobody had.
Yeah, that's sure. But I mean, I don't even have any basis to know what he would be battling now. And when I was watching it, normally when they showed the Zenyatta player, I'm like, how long is it before they switch to someone else? Because it's just people spamming around a corner hoping someone runs into it, which is like, this is the most boring shit to watch. But then I realized why they always showed it non-stop is because he was just getting insane amounts of kills and he was hitting everything. So it was like, all right, to be fair, go back to that. Let me see that instead, actually. I actually enjoy watching spam.
Also, the Dallas Fuel game, I think JJoNak on Numbani, it was a really short map on defense, but JJoNak, his biotic grenades were amazing on that map. And the way that he was rotating to hit the grenades, like he was doing weird positions as Ana, and the read, like when they were coming underneath and he throws the biotic grenade in, and then the fact that he was biotic grenading Taimu, and you guys knew that Taimu had his ult up on the soldier, and you kept fucking with him so he could never get in position to use that ult. And a lot of that was because all the biotic grenade timings were super good from him. So he's going to be a great Ana player too. You could tell if you watch that match, you just watch how JJoNak plays, and he was great also.
He was actually number one in the competitive game in Korea when he was doing Ana too, in the for 2 seasons, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why didn't JJoNak get picked up by a pro team sooner? Why is this his first season?
Well, it's kind hard to say because I don't know. Actually, I don't know because we were just considering him to pick up, but we don't have space to do it. So, well,
interesting.
Maybe it's just a loner.
I mean, the crazy thing is he's a rookie. So is anybody even going to come close to being rookie of the year for Overwatch League Season 1? I don't think so. I mean, the guy's
I like to read a lot of competitive Overwatch, and it's pretty clear Sinatra is going to be the best player to ever play Overwatch. So I think what are you talking about, Monty? Do you not keep up or something, mate? Come on.
He's not a rookie though, so
True. Okay, I get. He is in the Overwatch League though.
What do you consider a rookie? This is just their first pro team.
Yeah, it's hard to say, right? Okay. I mean, I don't even know if there is a Rookie of the Year for Season 1 award, but it is weird too, because what do you consider a rookie? What do you consider a pro team? Because according to Blizzard, pro teams didn't exist before Overwatch League. Is everybody a rookie? Did you have to play in contenders to maybe not be a rookie? I don't know.
Plus,
I don't know what our, if we had a rookie award, what the qualifications were, but Monte Cristo's personal qualifications are did you play at Apex? Did you play in contenders? If the answer to both those is no, then we'll call you a rookie.
I mean, to be fair, if you're just not one of the 70,000 pros, and now you're a pro, then you're a rookie.
Yeah, exactly. Not one of the 70,000.
There we go.
Although I suppose that would mean XQC is also technically a rookie.
He does do a lot of rookie plays, a lot of amateur shit.
He's making some rookie mistakes, at least.
Yes.
I think Muma will appreciate the XQC not being in contenders throwback.
Easy clap.
That was some quality banter. Back then, most people were not around in the Overwatch League when that was happening, or watching the Overwatch scene when that was happening, but I enjoyed it. I personally enjoyed it.